Alfie is a WOR race winner.
Jensen makes it 5 in a row.
Danny Berejnay wins on debut.
Shinaka returns to winning ways in WOR.
Season 12 sees a new man. It's Shadow. He is your Xbox champion.
And Jensen is the new king of PlayStation.
From the back row of the grid, against all odds, Nicholas Longy wins the title.
Goes past the safety car.
What has gone on here?
Bourbon spins.
Stunning move from the Spaniard.
He's taken out Rambo.
Here comes Longy.
We're going 4 wide down to turn 1.
Oh, he's taking him out.
The champion riders to the lead.
Tomek to the inside.
Got a win to Brazil. Absolutely sensational.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to World Online Racing for the final Esports Invitational before the season gets away properly next time around. We'll get to see which drivers are going to provide us with some scintillating action at Sao Paulo. We're here for the Brazilian Grand Prix. My name is Luke Etheridge. Alongside me in the commentary box tonight is Dan Field. And Dan, we saw an interesting race in Abu Dhabi earlier on in the week. There's been an update since then. The drivers have had plenty more time to get a bit of practice in. Do you think tonight will be a bit more representative of what we can expect to see over the full season?
Absolutely. I think that what happened earlier on in the week, that was clear desync issues. I don't think that the lobby was as dirty as it was made to look. Hopefully today at Sao Paulo, with the update now applied to the live patch of the game, that we're going to see some close, hard racing with some of our drivers that are already on the grid and have been announced recently.
Yeah, they have. We'll run through the grid for tonight then. Now, just quickly go through who we are expecting to see. There may have been a few late changes to this, but in the Mercedes, in fact, I can tell you which ones we can definitely confirm as well, because we've not actually got too many more to wait for in the session. In the Mercedes, it is going to be Jake Benham and Will Lewis. Jake, of course, a former WOR champion, the first one ever on the PC platform. Timon Shooter and Antoine de Zaleski for the Red Bull team. Georges Nader and Ika Baena, two young talents there racing for Ferrari. Istvan Pukki, and for the first time ever, Lucas Blakely, fantastic esports driver. He is in the McLaren tonight. Luke Smith and Ben Sasabo Konye racing for the Alpine team. Alpha Tauri is going to have Alfie Butcher and Primoz Miklevcic. Ruben Pedreño and Simon Perrinier in the Aston Martin. It is going to be Alvaro Caraton and Daddy Lusing in the Williams. We've got Tomek Pradcic, and we believe it is going to be, and I think he is definitely coming tonight. It is going to be reigning champion Nicholas Longy, and in the Haas it's going to be Drake Dempsey and Peter Strakolek. So no Jarno. Let's get that one out of the way quickly before all the questions start flooding in. He's not in here tonight, but still a very talented field. We've got the top 3 from last season, and Lucas making his debut as well. Should be a fascinating race.
Absolutely. I think I'm very excited to see Lucas Blakely now on the WOR grid. He's not been here in the past few seasons now. He's taking that McLaren seat. He's alongside Istvan Pukki today, but I believe once we get the season underway, him and Barry Burman are going to be joining forces, and that seems like an unstoppable pairing. So really excited to see how Lucas Blakely mixed it in with the rest of the WOR guys.
Yeah, certainly. We will run through what some of the grid is going to look like for next season later on, so you don't have too long to wait that. If you're following WOR on Twitter, you'll have seen it already, and if you're not, well, why not? At WOR League, if you want to check all the latest invitation on that. Also, the difference we've got for tonight compared to what we had last week is this is going to be more representative of the rules for most of the races for the season, because it is going to be a full qualifying and then a 50% race. So more what these drivers are used to doing in terms of league racing and, of course, F1 Esports.
Yep, absolutely. So the full qualifying and custom setups as well. It's drivers have had their time. It's been about 2 weeks since the game launched, and some of these drivers were even playing in the alpha and the beta stages. So plenty of time to build the setups. Now that they have been enabled, we're going to start to see drivers racing at their full potential.
Yeah, there should definitely be, used to how things are going at the moment. I think used to the setups, like you said. I know last time a lot of drivers were using time trial setups, which over 1 lap pace are absolutely fantastic. Over a longer race distance, not quite so much, which again could be another reason why we saw a few incidents. Not too long before we go away, but we will quickly go over the track for tonight. I'm sure we are more familiar with the Interlagos circuit. 2.677 miles, 4.309 kilometres. Those two DRS zones, as usual, are where we see all the action. And I can just imagine, in these new era of Formula 1 cars, I think that middle sector is going to be quite tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very hard track, but I've driven it a few times on this game, racing with my friends. It is beautiful. I really do love driving on this circuit, on the new game, and in that second sector especially. It's just so satisfying when you hook it up right. And these esports drivers, they're a hell of a lot better at the game than you and I, Luke. So I'd imagine that if we're having a good time at Interlagos, they're going to have that tenfold.
Yeah, I feel like you could drag someone off the street and there's a 50-50 chance whether they're going to be better than me at the F1 game, to be perfectly honest. And that's an interesting point that you've made in the chat and a few others have made. It is absolutely roasted. It feels like we're doing this in the jungle, in Brazil, in a bit of a sweat box. So that sort of stamina side of things, it's a 2-hour-long session, basically, when you include qualifying and the race. Things are going to start getting pretty warm for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when PCs generate that much heat and they're, focusing really, really hard, they're going to be sweating. It's going to feel like sort of an endurance. They're going to definitely take the time in the garage that they're not racing to cool off a little bit. And hopefully we've got some solutions to cool off as well. But yeah, it is so hot today. And I think that might actually impact some of our drivers.
Yeah, it might do. Hopefully it doesn't lead to any technology failures. That always a slight worry when things do get a bit hot. But you can see there, Q1 is underway. I'm sure we're all familiar with the rules here. 20 drivers, 5 go out in this session, 5 go out in the next session, and then you have your top 10 fighting for pole position. And of course, there is none of this trying to get 11th place, trying to get that start on the fresh tyres. Again, if you've been watching other league racing, if you've been watching the real world Formula 1, everyone does get that free choice of tyres. I can tell you one person who will be going out in that session, and this is Lucas Blakely. I know we talked about all this preparation that people are doing. He's still taking it pretty easy at the moment. He's still having a bit of fun. He said he's going with a time trial setup, and he's going to start from the back of the grid. And seeing what he's done in other races, I still wouldn't write him off in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lucas Blakely is a driver that's known to have fantastic performances, and he's such a competitive driver. He's really coming to his own, especially on the last game, and hopefully that carries over onto 22. It's going to be difficult with the time trial setup, given how much it does actually differ to a race setup, and he's not going to have the best of times, but we'd love to see what he's got in store for us. I think it is best for him to come out for a sighter lap and then go, just to lock in his setup and come back into the pit lane. But we do have some runners out on circuit. The first of which, I mean, a lot of these guys are on intermediates, but we've actually got Antoine Dezelewski starting his run on a set of the softs.
Yeah, so let's see what he can do around the Interlagos circuit then. The Frenchman, first used in Formula 1 in 1973, won then by Emerson Fittipaldi, but much changed since then. Down towards then, the centre S, a tricky downhill left-right chicane to start the lap, then a long left-hander at Curva de Sol. Don't get too greedy on the curve, especially in these modern Formula 1 cars. Down the Vetera Posta, then a very short first sector, 16.9 seconds into Decido de Largo. Always a corner that has been tricky on this and other games just to get right. Climbing up the hill now towards the twisty part of the circuit, this middle sector through the double right-hander at Ferrajova, and then braking hard here. You'll see all the drivers sticking in 4th gear. That is a feature of this game. You use the lower 3 gears, chances are you're going to be facing the wrong direction pretty quickly. There was a Red Bull facing the wrong direction here in 2019, of course, at Pico de Pato, where Lewis Hamilton and Albon made contact, in the end costing both of them a podium. Through Magulio now into Yongsao, arguably the most important corner on the track to get right, because from then on it is flat out all the way to the end, climbing up through the gears here. Antoine Dezelewski, you'll see him most likely hug the left hand side of the circuit for the shortest possible line, and that is a 107.870 First lap from Antoine looked like a very solid lap time, but I think there's definitely more time to come from him. And obviously, as the session goes on, track evolution comes into play, we will see some quicker times.
Absolutely, Antoine Dezeluski with a very respectable banker lap at the moment. A lot of the drivers who are out on circuit at the moment are just on a set of the intermediates. We've seen Tomek Parad just cross the line, and he's on an 11.5. So a lot of these drivers do it. I don't really know why. But there's some sort of reason behind it. But I think it does also confirm to us that we're going to have a dry race. I don't know if the weather has been set to sunny or anything, but we're not going to see the inters or the wets because they wouldn't be using them out in this qualifying session. So far, with 14 minutes left to go, Antoine Dezeluski still the lone soft runner as Lucas Blakely's popped in a time, a 1:09.5. He was clearly not pushing on that lap.
No, clearly not pushing. I think, like you said, just getting everything locked in, making sure everything is working. Drake Dempsey, I'm not sure if he had a spin in the middle sector or was just backing things off, taking it nice and easy. The American who won the Tier 2 title here in WOR last season, clinching it with some superb performances towards the end of the season, ended up securing it at this circuit. And of course we saw Tomek Paradžić. No, it was Nicholas Longe even, I should say. Nicholas Longe clinching the title over Cavaton and Paradžić at the final race of the season here at Brazil. A very tricky circuit I always find to set the car up for. Sector 1 and Sector 3, as you can see, it's all about that straight line speed, you know, with some pretty decent performance on the brakes. Sector 2 is where you really need the downforce, so a bit like we've seen happen so many times in real Formula 1. In qualifying, you're going to want a bit more downforce on the car to gain the time in that long middle sector. In the race, though, if you've got too much rear wing on, you're just going to be a sitting duck on the straights, or you're not going to be able to overtake anyone.
Yeah, it is very tricky to get the balance right around this track, but I know that these drivers are very dedicated into getting cars perfectly set up, and even though this is just a social race, they're still going to give it everything. I saw a lot of drivers streaming earlier. I know Jake and Nicholas, they were both live streaming their practice in the early hours of the day. So, you know, everyone really does focus and prepare for this track, and that is what I love about league races. They never take it easy when it comes to a competitive race, even if there's no real incentive for it. So yeah, I think they've got the balance down so far at the moment. With 12 minutes to go, Dezeluski still the only driver with a top lap, with an actual respectable lap time, and he's just come out for his second out lap here.
Yeah, so interesting that no one else at the moment has decided to go out. You can see there the others that have set times: Lucas Blakely, Tomek Paradžić, Ika Baena, not bad on a set of the intermediates, I suppose, a 1:11. That's probably not too far off what I'd managed to do on a set of the soft tyres, quite worryingly. So clearly finding some grip on those intermediate tyres around here. If we see some rain in the race, it's very possible, as always around Brazil. Sometimes it can be bone dry, and then 5 minutes later you do end up seeing the rain come falling down. So who knows, you might need a set of the intermediates, or you might need a set of the wet tyres later on, as finally someone else has decided to venture out on the circuit on a set of softs to try and set a competitive lap time. And it's going to be Danny Lusing heading out there. Jake Benham also heading out. A chance for these drivers to impress. Obviously, we've seen Jake and a lot of others before, Antoine up towards the top. But for drivers like Danny, like Drake Dempsey as well, who weren't regular appearances in Tier 1 last season, it's a chance for them to show what they can do against the big boys.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course, due to the heavy committed schedules that some of the esports drivers have, you know, outside of Formula 1, they do typically miss races sometimes, and then we do have to look to sort of the lower tiers sometimes for reserves, and these guys are really making a name for themselves as potential candidates to replace them and really find their way to burst onto the scene at the top level. So these showings in the social races is a sort of a way to prove what they are actually capable of, and hopefully for them, you know, they have a good performance. They can mix it in with some of the top guys, and this could be the start of their breakthrough.
Yeah, you never know. Like you said, busy schedules with esports. We'll be going through the calendar later on and who are the drivers for the different teams, but that doesn't include the reserves, and you never know, you might always get that shot at a reserve, might end up being promoted into a full-time seat, and even not, you are getting good practice against these guys, and that's what you need to do if you want to improve yourself. You've got to race against the best and really see what sort of benchmarks you can set. Danny just going for a second hot lap here, a second push lap, not really something we've seen too often on this game. 1:08.783, didn't use any ERS really on that lap, so taking it quite steady indeed, as Jake Benham now just coming around this tight middle sector. And obviously after winning the championship back in season 11 when there wasn't really any esports drivers taking part. Season 12 we saw the likes of Longe, Caraton, Shanaka Clay come in, and Barry Burramund as well for occasional races. Jake still did. Ooh, as he gets a big slide coming out of Young Sal there. That's going to cost him a lot of time, and we'll see towards the finish line. Jake still did a very respectable job against those guys, and he'll be hoping he can push them closer on more occasions this season. And maybe, as he does a 107, 247, in the end probably not costing him all as much as we would have thought. 6 tenths faster than everyone else with half the session remaining. Jake will be hoping he can become the first repeat champion, and he can really challenge those drivers more and more often. And everyone keeps talking about we could very possibly see him in esports this season, either at Mercedes or at another team.
Of course, I mean, the age does play into it as well. You know, the young limit of 16 years old, I believe, of how young you can actually be. If I'm not mistaken, Jake is 16 years old, and that means he does have the potential. 15 years old. So he could be in challengers possibly next season, and that could see him on in the F1 esports scene come F1 23. And I really do hope the best for him. We've seen a lot of work with him and Jarno together, of course, in their co-op career mode. And Jake, he's really doing well for himself, and I'm seeing a lot of people also sort of becoming Jake fans. And I think this is really league racing has just been the start of what could be a very successful esports career for Jake Benham.
Yeah, it's understandably, it's the best way to get into this. So we've seen drivers, even before they put in performances in challenges, get picked up either by main teams or either by academy teams. This is the possibility. This is where you can show yourself on a regular basis. Yes, obviously, getting through to the pro exhibition, doing a great job in challenges, as Jake did, as he managed to get to that pro exhibition, is the official way. But you put in good performances in league racing, you're going to have a fantastic chance of yourself. And this includes this man, Ruben Pedreño, one of the Alpine juniors, in part of Race Clutch, but they've got so many in this series that they're taking over the Aston Martin seats as well for tonight. And we'll see what Pedreño does as he now heads towards the line. Can he challenge Jake Benham? Can he get into the 106ers? No, he cannot. But a 107, 190 for Pedreño, instantly beaten by Tomek Paracic, 107, 126. I mean, we saw what Tomek did last season. We've seen what he's done in challenges. He's certainly going to be one to watch throughout season 13.
Yeah, absolutely. Tomek Paracic is really something special, and he's been a part of the league racing scene for quite some time. Of course, we saw him, in F1 2019 or something when he was about 13 or 14 years old. And he was a part of Veloce Squad Sprint, which is a series they did on the F1 games back in 2019. They moved to Assetto Corsa more recently, but Paracic, given his work in challenges as well, he has been so consistent and so good. I would not be surprised if I'm expecting him to be in an F1 esports seat this season, and I'm really excited to see what the Polish driver can do. Yeah,
certainly. And then we've got some of those younger names that have impressed very recently as well, that have changed over to the platform on here on PC. Alfie Butcher's just gone into 9th. He's come over from the Xbox side as the times are coming in thick and fast now. They're dropping down the order quicker than we can say them. Georges Dedier, 8th place, coming over from the PlayStation. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do. The Lebanese man. Primoz Miklavčić now heading towards the finish line. What's he going to do? The Croatian driver in the AlphaTauri gets himself into 9th. 107.390 from him. So we've seen representative lap times, I think, now from 15 of the drivers. Those that we haven't include Danny Lusink, Lucas Blakely, who we know will not be doing, Ika Baena, Istvan Puki, and Alvaro Caraton, who is also still in the pit. So possibly Alvaro going for a bit of a last to first challenge as well.
Yeah, I mean, what a nice back row of the grid that would be. I mean, Alvaro Caraton and Lucas Blakely together. Blakely's just improved on a lap, actually. He's gone up into 16th position ahead of Danny Lusink there. So he's still adamant on getting himself out in the first session, but it's not seeming like he's wanting to go into last position. Alvaro Caraton, he's got a certainly different idea, because he's not even come out onto the circuit. And as I say that, I actually see him now leaving the garage. So Alvaro Caraton, he's finally going to get his qualifying session underway. Cutting it very fine here with just 5 minutes left to go.
Yeah, 5 minutes left to go. He is in the drop zone. A lot of the drivers now starting to head out a bit early for their final runs, but it does give them the opportunity, of course, to present in multiple laps if they want to do so. Jake Benham, one of those, in 7th at the moment. You'd really not say anyone is safe, just with how close things are. 0.16 seconds separating Paracic to Nadir. You've got 0.45 seconds separating 1st to 14th. and then the rest are a bit further off. But Zaleski, that was the first one we saw off anyone on the soft tyres. And as we've already said, we've not really seen representative runs from the 2 McLarens or the 2 Williams drivers at the moment. That might change now that you've got Cavaton and Pookie heading on out laps. We'll follow Jake Benham around this middle sector, which, given the more understeering nature of cars on this game, certainly when drivers were trying to get used to the setups through the slow corners, can't imagine this middle sector is the most enjoyable part of the F1 calendar.
No, I mean, I don't think it is really just in general around this track. I mean, it is very difficult. But again, like I said earlier, when the flow is there, it is very, very satisfying to get right. As Jake Benham now headed towards the line, he's completely depleted his battery. It's about 10% at the moment, and he crossed the line not too far off the back of Tomic Praj, about half a tenth, and he goes into 3rd position. Jake Benham, that should see him through into the next session. Luke Smith has retired the car, and he has come into the pit lane. He's happy with his 107.2 and thinks that is enough to get himself into the next session. Someone who's on the edge, Alvaro Caraton, currently on his run, just coming through Pinorino now in the 2nd sector with just 3 minutes left to set this lap. He's cutting it very fine, but I think he's going to get a lap in. He's looking quite nice so far.
Yeah, not looking too bad whatsoever. We'll see his time coming through sector 2, 50.5. Definitely representative with those we've seen in the 107.1s, 107.2s at the moment. Pedreño, Smith and Shooter all think they've done enough in this session with just over 3 minutes remaining. What can Alvaro Caraton do? Only driver yet to set a lap time, and he instantly goes fastest. 107.077 for the Williams. Head out, leave it right until the last minute, go out there, do 1 lap, fastest of everyone, job done. Not bad at all.
That puts Ben Shabakoni into the drop zone, and it could be even further down because Istvan Pookie is up on his time as well, and he's 14 seconds up on his previous best, but I'd imagine he'd have backed off in the 2nd sector. He's on a 25.4 at the moment, not representative whatsoever. Now headed in towards the final corner, up towards the line he comes, and he only gets himself into 17th position. So Istvan Pookie, he is in the drop zone in the bottom 5, and he's going to need to go for a cooldown lap, recharge the battery, and go again if he wants to get into Q2.
Yeah, certainly looks like a bit of a strange line through the, just heading down. Well, it's not really a straight, it does count as 2 extra corners, but heading down, coming out of Young South, almost looked as if he was heading to the pits, which is quite common, but really got close to heading there and then had to swerve over to the right-hand side. So I'm not sure if that was just a bit of a connection issue, perhaps, making it look worse than it actually was. But not ideal whatsoever. As for 2 AlphaTauris, showing some brilliant teamwork here, better than what we saw from the real-life compatriots at them at the British Grand Prix, of course, at Silverstone 1 week ago. Alfie Butcher getting a fantastic slipstream off Primoz Mikulicic, and that puts Butcher up into 6th place. He should be safe on that one, as should Perronier on 7th. The pressure, I think, really probably on everyone from Mikulicic down now to see whether they can improve, but Stachelek and Neder, you never know, they could also find themselves in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, Dezeluski has just crossed the line to only go 14th fastest, so he's not going to be feeling too safe with that one. We know that Blakely wants to get himself out in this qualifying session and start from the back of the grid. Danny Lusink currently in the bottom 5 with a 108.7. He is on a push lap at the moment, as is Ben Shabakonyi, who's just come to the line. He's actually starting another lap. So I think Lusink is going to be the next one who is feeling the pressure the most as he's in towards Jun Sao now. The final braking zone is going to be foot flat to the floor up until the line from here, where he bends over the crest and on towards the start-finish straight. DRS wide open for Lusink, the Williams driver in 20th position, coming up towards the line now. Can he get himself out of the bottom 5? He does indeed. He puts himself into 12th position. That puts Will Lewis in the drop zone.
Yeah, gotta wonder how long he's going to be safe on that. Drake Dempsey, he's going for another one. He's got enough time to do that now. With that, it was Alfie Butcher heading back into the pits. He should be safe. What can his teammate Primoz Mikulicic can do? It's a good job he's got enough time to get another lap in as well, because this is not an improvement. Georges Neder coming into the pits. That lap would have not been quick enough. Is that going to be a bit of a mistake from him later on? Antoine de Zaleski again. These drivers are leaving it quite late in this session. Ika Baena gets himself up into 12th place, just behind his teammate, so that probably secures safety for Nadir. It might still leave Baena in a bit of trouble, though. That was Lucas Blakely heading towards the line. Bench sub Okonye can only get into 14th. The former Ferrari Esports driver in 14th at the moment. He is going to be feeling the pressure now, as that is Will Lewis comes into the pits. Pookie in the pits as well. So it's only Dempsey and Zaleski that we're expecting to have any chance of improving.
And Drake Dempsey's backed out, so he is going to be eliminated here. It's all on the shoulders of Antoine Desaluski. Can he get himself out of the bottom 5 in the first sector? He was 4/100ths up on his previous best lap, but I think, yeah, he might be going slow through Magulio here unless we'll see an improvement. And he's slightly down, 400ths off in the second sector. A slide out of Junsao. That is going to be him eliminating himself. And who's just crossed the line there was, I think it was Miklavcic going into 4th position. That's put Drake Dempsey into the bottom 5. Miklavcic does that very nicely indeed.
Yeah, great job from him. I think just can't get 2 straight runs in a row here. With using all of your ERS, you just burn out by the end of the lap, and that is what happened to Zaleski. 500ths of a second down coming out of Young Sao with that long acceleration zone, plus the difficulty he had on traction. Was always going to be an uphill task, unfortunately, for him. He's out of the session, as is Dempsey, Lewis, Pookie, and Blakely, who we knew was aiming to start from last place. He's got what he would have wanted, and it is Carrington, Paracic, and Longe, top 3 in the championship last season, top 3 in qualifying here, albeit a different order.
Yep, some things seemingly just never change, and I think one thing that hasn't changed is how close this grid is as well. The top 4 separated by 800ths of a second, the top 10 separated by 1.5 tenths of a second, so incredibly close once again in Q1 of this social.
Yeah, definitely very close indeed. There you can see Miklavcic did a brilliant job getting up into 4th place at the end of that session. So these are the times, the fastest drivers in that session, counting for nothing, but they did get through. Carrington, Paracic, Longe, Miklavcic, and Benham, and you can see there the top 10 drivers separated by just over 1.5 tenths of a second. Q2 could be exceptionally close indeed for drivers who won't be taking part in Q2. Drake Dempsey, 0.355 off the fastest, still amazes me, even after all this time, just how hard they're battling and just how close things can get. Dizalowski, Lewis, Pookie, and as we already said, Lucas Blakely, who was planning to start from the back anyway. I think there were a few drivers might have been relieved by those at the last minute who failed to make their way through.
That was a very close qualifying session. In the end, I mean, it is a pretty short circuit, but I think some of the drivers that were in sort of that 11th, 12th position, they were definitely biting their fingernails, and they get to breathe a sigh of relief at this point. But now the results in Q1, wherever you finish in the top 15, that doesn't matter anymore, because we've got Q2. The slate has been wiped clean, 15 cars, 15 minutes, and it's the battle for the top 10 places.
Yes, it is, and normally, we've seen on previous games, because of the tyre strategies, sometimes the time to get through to Q3 would be slower than the time you needed to get through to Q2. I think there's going to be none of that here. We saw Carrington get very close to the 107. You'd imagine, well, to the 106, I should say. You'd imagine with the track evolution, we are going to see someone do it here. And there's a few drivers heading out there straight away, not hanging about whatsoever. Both of the Alfa Romeos, Longe and Paracic, first drivers out on a set of the soft tyres, and one of the Aston Martins also joining them. That is Pedreño heading out there straight away, wanting to get a bit of a run early on. This might well be on a used set of tyres, but if it's a new set and they could get into the 106 straight away, they might be able to just relax and chill for the final bits before Q3.
Absolutely, if they're able to set a time early on, what's the point in coming out? Save yourself a set of tyres as well. Of course, these drivers are going to be pushing as hard as they can. Given that on the last game, you know, there wasn't the rule that you could start on whatever tyre you wanted. You had to start on what tyre you qualified in Q2 on. So a lot of drivers would try and push for the mediums, or purposefully try to push for P11 and then start on the alternate strategy and have the, you know, be quicker in the race than the drivers in the top 10. That doesn't happen anymore, so everyone's going to be pushing as much as they can. Nicolas Longe is the first to start us on a run as he comes towards the start-finish straight, keeping it tight-knit to the right-hand side, and he's going to begin his lap of Interlagos.
Yeah, so let's see what Longe can do then on the first one. The reigning champion here in WOR after a fantastic job last season. He's now obviously part of the Veloci stable alongside Lucas Blakely, who joined that one recently, so be intriguing to see what sort of teams they end up in. Veloci do seem to quite a few in esports at the moment, so there's definitely multiple opportunities for everyone. And now it is that tricky middle sector that everyone always has the issues with. You can see just a tiny dab of the brakes in towards Ferrajova, and then very nice trail braking from the Frenchman. I mean, yes, you've got to have some natural talent, obviously, to be good at this game, but the amount of hours these drivers put in to get the setups right, to get the consistency in the braking zones, can't understate the importance of that. Long day there, another one just to have a bit of wall ball. Young Sao definitely proving to be quite difficult for some of these drivers tonight.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I had my microphone on mute there. As Longay crossed the line, he goes into the 107.6s. Tomek Parajic immediately knocking that out of the water by about 0.2 per second. So already we're not seeing times that are as quick as they were in Q1, but I'd imagine as the session goes on and track evolution occurs, these times will come clattering down, and I'd imagine that these times we're seeing at the moment, they're not actually going to be safe for a Q3 spot.
No, I think you're going to need probably a 107.0 to be safe for Q3. Who knows, you might even need to get into the 106s to be certainly safe. Mirklov cheating validated on his lap time, so we're not going to see anything from him. Lusink, another one that has also got things wrong. Simon Shooter had put backed off on his lap, does set a time, but it's a 122.6, as I don't think Alvaro Cavaton was taking it too easy then. 107.180 for him. That's a fantastic time indeed. He was fastest in Q1, but that counts for nothing now. It's all about what you can do in the remaining 11 minutes, 15 seconds of this session, as the Alfa Romeo's making their way around again. I imagine that might be just to dive it back towards the pit lane. They've had a bit of a run out. Got a feel for what the conditions are like in this session. They won't have changed too much from first qualifying, but if track temperatures are a bit warmer, a bit cooler, a bit more rubber on the track, just changes things slightly. You've got to be able to adapt into these situations. The racetrack, it's almost like a living thing. It's going to have changes. It's going to have little difficulties that you're going to have to work around.
Absolutely, these drivers sort of just got to, ride it out and just see how it feels, and it takes sometimes a lap just to test things out and see how things are. We do have a few runners still on laps. Timon Shooter headed in towards, he was in the pit lane. He was improving by quite a lot in his 1 minute 22.6, but that is a representative time, and I think he just decided late to pull it back into the pit lane. Alfie Butcher's come for an out lap. I'm seeing Danny Lusink on a lap. He's coming into the pit lane. There's a Williams teammate of Alvaro Caraton coming into the box as well. So it seems like the first run of laps is seemingly over, unless Luke Smith has anything to say about it. He's just coming through Pinarino at the moment on a 1 minute 20.9, so that's not going to see him into Q3 by any means, but he is finding some time in the first sector, and in sector 2, sliding through Magulio. We'll see how that affects his sector times. He's still 12 seconds up, so I think Luke Smith, he's going to try and push for that, for one of the top places here.
Yeah, of course. Depends how much he backed off in the final sector, but this should still definitely be around the 107s. Very close to looking as if it was headed into the pit lane. Luke Smith comes across the line, gets himself up into the second place. 107.373. I think he's going to need more than that. Jess and Yona certainly think you're going to need more than that. Both of them thinking 106.8, 106.9 is going to be the cutoff in this session, which no one has managed to get to yet. Alfie Butcher, the first of this second group to head out there on the circuit. Yellow flags just for cars, of course, backing out of the way. And traffic management, always key in a qualifying session. We've spoken a lot about how tight and twisted the middle sector is around here. If you just catch a curve at the wrong point, that's going to be your qualifying lap ruined. And in a championship race, in one that actually counts towards the championship, that's probably going to mean a qualifying ban for whoever blocked you.
And, well, Alfie Butcher, he's catching 5 cars at the moment. 2 Alpines, 2 Alfa Romeos, and an Aston Martin. Hopefully they do a good job of getting out of the way, but you get the feeling that they are going to be causing a slight hold-up for the young Englishman, as there's another car out of the way. The Alfa Romeo gets out of the way to the right-hand side. He's still finding some decent time on this lap. 50.9 through the first 2 sectors. He's just come out of Junsao now, and he's headed up the crest and opening up the DRS. He goes underneath the gantry as he comes towards the line, hugging it to the left-hand side. What can Alfie Butcher do? Has he lost time in that second sector? And it's a 107.4, and I think he did lose out ever so slightly.
Yeah, I think, don't want to accuse anyone, but I think whichever Aston Martin it was, sort of thought about getting out of the way and then changed their mind at the last minute, and that indecision. Even if they're not holding you up in terms of the dirty air, that just indecision of having a car in front of you, not quite knowing which direction it's going to go in, can always cause you a few issues. Georges Dede, 50.6, I should say, second sector time. We saw anything around there is going to be very decent. So this could be good enough to challenge Alvaro Caraton and be the fastest time we've seen so far. The Ferrari heading towards the finish line, 107.158. That is the fastest time we've seen in Q2 so far. And a big thank you to Sin F3 for the, I believe that is 7.99 rand. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, saying this is interesting, and I think interesting sort of an understatement given how close this grid is proven to be so far. We do have some runners on laps at the moment. I think Ruben Pedreño is in the final sector, and he was improving as Longue goes to the line, and that is the first time of the day that we are seeing in the 1 minute sixes. And that is a certainly impressive time, and that is what the likes of Jess and Jonah in the live chat have mentioned, that is the cutoff. So is this time from Nicolas Longue going to be able to see him into the next session?
Yeah, well, I'll have to wait and see whether he decides to dive it towards the pits and whether this is going to be enough our reigning champion to get into the top 10. Time and Shooter, he's improving. Can he get into the 106s as well? Not quite, but a 107.059 from the young Dutchman. Not so bad whatsoever. Whether he's going to feel safe on that one, I doubt it. Effectively, this might be one of those sessions where everyone just waits until the last minute because you're never quite sure what improvements you are going to get until the very last minute. Ika Baena, he's invalidated on his lap already, so we're not going to see any improvements from him. Peter Stachulek now heading towards the finish line, 107.251. I think, again, you are going to need to find a bit more time than that, unless we're all wrong and the circuit has actually got a bit slower. But judging by Longue's time and judging by Time and Shooter's time, there is definitely some pace out there. So I think Longue, it'd be a bit of a risk, maybe, to stay out, well, to retire in the pits and be confident on that one. But I think he'd get away with it. Shooter's probably borderline. Everyone below him, I think, certainly has got to go again.
Yeah, here's Caraton to the line. He's improving in the second sector, and there it is. He crossed the line. He triumphs Nicolas Longue the second time in the 1 minute sixes, but not by much. By 14 thousandths of a second is the gap between the pair of them. So very tight margins indeed, as Ikabayan is just beginning on a lap. I believe Shooter is coming into the pits here, so it seems like the second wave of laps are well and truly over, unless we've got the likes of Maklavčić on run. So we still have some drivers just doing some laps. But at the moment, Alvaro Caraton, Nicolas Longue, and Time and Shooter, very tight-knit in the top three at the moment. But they're not entirely safe because they've still got a few runners like Jake Benham, like Maklavčić, and Zabakonyi and Lusink as well, who haven't done representative lap times. So I'd say, even though we have about 5 minutes left in this session, Luke, it is far from over.
Yeah, certainly. It's going to be a very intriguing final 5 minutes. And then, of course, the final qualifying session. Who do you guys think is going to end up getting on pole position today? Let us know in the chat, and of course what time that pole time is going to be. 50.9 from Primož Maklavčić, so a bit down on what we've seen earlier on. This might put him in and around Pradžić, Perenier, Butcher if he decides to finish his lap. And it looks like he is going to finish this lap. What can the AlphaTauri driver do? Heads towards the finish line, and yeah, in the end actually ends up going behind Danny Lusink on a 107.581. We know he's got more time than that. He ended up finishing 4th in the last session, as that is Ika Baena, who's come across the line into 7th place. It is now Butcher, Lusink, Maklavčić, Zabakonyi, and Jake Benham, who we've still not seen anything from in this session. With 4 minutes 14 to go, those are the drivers in the drop zone. Caraton, Longue, and Shooter probably looking fairly comfortable now.
There is some activity down at Mercedes. That is Jake Benham headed out onto the circuit. So it's seemingly when we mention these drivers that they've not come out to set a lap, they get the warning, they come out on circuit. It happened with Caraton in Q1, now it's happened with Jake Benham in Q2, and he's going to be coming out on his outlap pretty early on here. It's going to give him free air in front of him for his outlap, but then when he's on his flyer, a lot of drivers are going to be coming out for their outlaps, and that could spell some trouble if he catches them at the wrong part of the circuit, especially in the second sector. So Jake Benham, he's got to be careful here, and he's got to time it right for him to set this lap, but a few drivers as well coming out on circuit early here.
Yeah, we saw Jake do this in Q1. I think he came out with about 4.5 minutes remaining on that occasion. So it seems to be the tactic he's doing. It seems to have worked for him. I mean, last time out, he was 5th with a 107.187. That would put him into 6th for now. And I think, again, not quite safe. Last time, the knockout time, I believe, was about a 107.4 we saw Drake Dempsey do, and that failed to get him through. But Jake Benham, he's going to be the first man to set a lap. A lot of other drivers behind him. I think that's Perignier and Pedreno have both headed out there. The Aston Martins, one of the Alpha Tauris, that will be Alfie Butcher. He's the one on that cut-off point at the moment, and you can see the top three are feeling confident. They're pretty safe, they reckon, on a 106.9 and a 107.059. They might change their mind in about 67 seconds time, depending on what Jake Benham can do here in the Mercedes.
Yeah, but he's on his... Oh, yeah. He's backed off, coming through the curve at El Sol there. You saw he lifted on the throttle, and that is him going to be going for a potential second. I think he's going to go for a second outlap here. Maybe he's not feeling the temperature in the tyres, or he could have made a mistake through the center S's. But Jake Benham backing off here, and he's going to come out once again. And that's good that he's fueled his car up enough, because he sort of anticipated maybe that he could have made a mistake.
Yeah, it's always, you know, a bit of a smart thing to do. It's that payoff. Do you fuel low, knowing that you're only going to get one lap, but it will be a quicker lap, or do you put that tiny bit more extra fuel in, knowing that if you make a mistake, you can recover it? Because I think also there, Ruben Pedreno, not improving it in the first sector, decided just to get his way back towards that second outlap, backing off early enough to make sure he's got enough ERS on his run, as I think, again, there was an absolute ton of traffic at the middle sector. And again, it is Alfie Butcher just trying to work his way through it. He is 3 tenths up, though, on his personal best, so this could put him in and around Pedreno and Nader on the 107.1s. It's going to be tight to see whether that is enough to get yourself through into the top 3 in this qualifying session, but this is going to be it for young Alfie Butcher. Heads towards the line, and in the end, he is in 6th place on a 107.170. I imagine not feeling entirely comfortable on that time. Tomek Pradcic, he heads towards the line, gets himself up into 3rd, 107.055. He should be safe. 1 minute to go. Perignier, Lusink, Miklevcic, Benham and Charbon Conye, they need to find some time.
Yeah, Perignier just comes to the line. He's gone only 8th fastest. Ben Charbon can only muster 9th position. So these guys certainly on the bubble here, especially with the likes of Stahalek in behind, who is up on his previous best by almost 2 tenths of a second. This could see him right up ahead of Ruben Pedreno. Luke Smith goes into 3rd position. That puts Sakalek into the bottom 5 as he crossed the line now to go in towards 6th position. Zabakoni now in the drop zone. Where's Jake Benham? All of this, he is pushing in the final sector, and he's about to come to the line, hugging the inside to get the shortest run to the line. Here comes Jake Benham. He goes to the top of the order, and that should see him safely soaring into the final parts of qualifying.
Nerves of steel from Benham, left it right until the death in this qualifying session. He goes fastest of everyone. Miklevcic gets himself up into 8th place as Pedreno now goes fastest of everyone on a 106.918. That is qualifying over. Alfie Butcher, we said might be pretty nervous on that 107.170. We already know that is him going to be out of qualifying. And with everyone going early on in this session, I wonder if we're going to actually have a bit of an anticlimax and whether we are going to see any improvements. I think the only man who could get himself out of that bottom 5 is Ika Baena, the Spaniard, making his way around the Young Sao, the final proper corner now. He is a 10th of a second up, so you better hope that was a fantastic exit out of the Young Sao, or Baena is going to be waving bye-bye to this qualifying session. The Ferrari heads towards the line, gets 10th place at the expense of his teammate for the night, Georges Dede, just sneaking his way through there.
That was 0.02 of a second in between the 2 Ferrari cars, so well, it'd be very mixed feelings down at the Ferrari garage. He was just able to secure his place in the next session, but it was at the expense of his teammate. And look at how close this qualifying grid is today. I mean, Ben Chabakonyi was just under 3 tenths off of Ruben Pedreno, and he's found himself in 14th position. That is insane how close this qualifying session was. It is Pedreno at the top of the order, just ahead of Jake Benham, and then a further 0.5 tenth clear of Alvaro Caraton, who set his lap pretty early on, as did Nicholas Longe and Timon Shooter as well. So those guys got to be pretty pleased with their efforts to see themselves in Q3 and potentially saving themselves a tyre.
Yeah, definitely. If they've done that on the first set of fresh tyres, because I know we did see Longe and Caraton go out earlier on, and their times were a bit down on where we would have expected, judging by the times in Q1. So very possibly they have saved themselves some tyres, might be able to get those 2 fresh runs in Q3, which is always very important. and Nede, Butcher, Perenier, Charbot, Cognier and Lusing all heading out of that session. And they all went quite early on. I wonder if they're possibly just ruining the decision to do that. But you can see there, Pedreño, Benham, Cavaton, Longe, Smith, Pradcic, Shooter, Stakalek, Miklavcic and Bayeno will be fighting for pole position in this invitational event. Georges Nede, Alfie Butcher, Simon Perenier, Ben Charbot, Cognier and Danny Lusing all heading out there. Close once again, and we're sort of seeing a pattern. Pradcic, Longe, Cavaton all up there again, but this time Ruben Pedreño able to get involved with him. Jake Benham and Luke Smith not too far off either. It's looking exceptionally close once more.
Absolutely, I mean, we've got sort of the esports talent fighting it out with some of the youngsters, you know, Alvaro Caraton and Longe are both veterans in the F1 esports scene. Then we've got the young guns like Pedreño, Smith, Benham and Pradcic as well, scrapping it in the top 6. I cannot wait for Q3 to see which of these guys, or maybe even someone outside of that top 6 fight, secure their spot on pole position, as it's 12 minutes, 10 cars fighting for pole.
Yeah, definitely. It's anything you've got left in the tank, it's now or never. You've really got to try and release things. I mean, Time and Shooter was not far off, really, judging by how close things were. I don't think you can say anyone was too far off in that last session. But Q3 is underway, and I believe that is maybe one of the Williams that's heading out there quite keen early on in the session. And if it is a Williams, it is going to be Alvaro Caraton, the only surviving one in this session, wanting to get out there straight away. Possibly, like we said, taking advantage of the fact that you've got 2 sets of free tyres left. You might as well go out for a bit of a run now, see what you can do just to get that banker in.
And imagine it's sort of going to be a cycle lap for Alvaro Caraton. He's going to wait until the last possible moment to set his proper flyer right at the end of the session. So I'd imagine in the early parts of this Q3 session, the drivers are going to be pushing as hard as they possibly can. We saw that in Q2 as well. These guys were going a little bit slower than their max potential, and then towards the end of the session, they really picked it up, pushed it into gear. But around this short lap, Alvaro Caraton is about to begin. He's just coming in towards the 3rd sector. And only a few cars out on circuit, the others being Miklavcic, Shooter and Stahalek.
Yeah, perhaps, again, everyone decided, is it worth going out there on a set of used tyres? Is it worth learning much more about this track as Cavaton dives his way straight towards the pit lane? I'll say he's practicing the pit entry, and that's why he decided to come in on that occasion. So it looks like, if he does set a lap time, it is going to be Miklavcic, the first man to get out in this session. Jess thinking Longe is going to get on pole. Ben saying, I imagine what he meant to say was a 106.7. That could well be pole position. We've seen, you know, about 2 tenths faster in between Q1 and Q2, so maybe 106.7, possibly 106.8 will get you pole position. The big question is going to be who can do that. Will it be one of the drivers from last season? Will it be an esports star? Will it be someone a bit different? Miklavcic just making his way through Decido de Largo now, climbing up the hill. They always find this is the part of the race, the track, on lap 1. It's always a bit of a pinch point, can always cause issues in the race, heading up that hill into Ferraggiora.
And unfortunately, Miklavcic invalid on this attempt, so he's not going to be setting a time this session, or just yet. But we do have a few more drivers on laps. Piotr Stahalek coming in towards the 2nd sector through Pinarino now, and he's looking pretty decent at the moment. He's been able to keep it on track and not invalidate so far. In towards Bico de Pato. He's doing quite nicely on this lap. He's looking very smooth here, Luke.
Yeah, he is looking very smooth indeed. We'll get an idea with his Q2 time, well, his Sector 2 time, just how much of a push lap it is. 50.8 suggests this is either on a used set of tyres or he's not really putting the hammer down in that Haas car at the moment. As Stakalek heading towards the line into the pits. Decides he's going to stay out. He is going to complete it. 107.346, the first time that we have seen in this session. Just reading in the chat as well, it looks like Georges Nede was actually blocked on his final qualifying run. It did look like he perhaps retired from the session a bit early on, so obviously getting a block, unlucky for him, and starting in 11th place, not the bonus prize that it used to be. Time and Shooter now 28 thousandths up on what Stakalek did, and a few more of those that we saw right towards the top of the order heading out there onto the circuit now, including Longe, Pradcic and Caraton. Jake Benham also on a hot lap in the Mercedes.
Yeah, Jake Benham really riding the curves through Curva del Sal. Now down the Reta Aposta in towards turn number 4 at Desida del Lago. It's a 16.6 through the first sector. What can he manage as he gets onto the curb on the exit? He misses Apex actually, slightly through the fourth corner, but up the hill towards Ferradura, now in towards this very tricky second sector. Easy to lock up in this next right-hander, but he's done that very, very nicely indeed. Downhill left-hander through Pinarino and then rising up the crest. A very undulating circuit, making for a very tricky track to navigate perfectly. But Jake Benham at the moment, will see by his sector 2 times what he is on for. Time and shooter was about a 50.6 and he seems to be around that area.
Yeah, definitely. I think this could be the fastest time of all. The first real benchmark, you could say, of this Q3 session. What is Jake Benham going to have to do now as he heads towards the line? Can he sneak into the 106ers? No, he cannot. But a 107.051 from the Mercedes man puts him on provisional pole position for now. We've got Pradcic just heading around the middle sector, one of the Aston Martins. That will be Ruben Pedreño. He was fastest of everyone, of course, with a 106.8 in the second part of qualifying. What can the Spaniard do? He heads towards the line. Goes identical according to the times there, and Cavaton 106.922, fastest of everyone again. Can't get much closer than that between Pedreño and Benham.
Yeah, I mean, the exact same lap time to the nearest 1,000th of a second. I don't know how the game actually determines who goes quicker. As Tomek Peragic comes to the line, he goes in towards second position, but about a 10th off of what Alvaro Caraton has done so far. His teammate for the evening, Nicolas Longue, not pushing at the moment through Pinarino. He's got Jake Benham in behind him as well, as Luke Smith has just crossed the line to go into 5th position. And look at how close these times are. We got 4 drivers in the 1 minute 7.0s. Insanely close once again, this WOR Esports Invitational grid.
Yeah, it's looking fantastically close so far. Longue going for a second warm-up lap there, so whether he made a mistake early on his lap or this was always the intention, but he's got a full battery ready to go again. Baena just behind him was in 8th position, but first blood in the final part of qualifying goes to Alvaro Caraton. Half the session to go. He's the only driver to get into the 106ers on this occasion. Peragic second, Pedreño on Benham on identical times. The game must be counted to like tens of thousandths of a second underneath what we can see, like they do in IndyCar, but they do tell you that lap time, because obviously in Formula 1 rules, Benham would have been in 3rd, Pedreño would be in 4th, because Benham did set his time first, and that could be really important. It wouldn't surprise me with how close the grid is this season if we do see a session where someone loses out on a run into Q2 or a run into Q3 purely on setting that identical lap time.
Yeah, and that could make for a little bit of controversy, and I think there should be a way for Codemasters to implement that. We've, of course, seen the rule applied in real life. I think in nearest memory it was between Ricciardo and Raikkonen at USA in 2017, as I was just watching Nicolas Longue come through Jun Sao, and he was very, very quick in that second sector. He'd have gone quicker than Alvaro Caraton, actually, and he's unfortunately dropped it on exit there. And he's going to have to recuperate, come back into the pit lane. He's got nothing in the tank and nothing in the battery to go for a 3rd push lap. So Longue could be dropping the bottle here.
Yeah, don't adjust your sets, people. That was Nicolas Longue making a mistake. I think just asking too much of those rear tyres coming out of young Sao. Just clearly desperate to get a fantastic exit, as good as one as possible. Time and shooter a bit off the ultimate best, but 62 thousandths up at the moment could get him ahead of Miklavčić into sort of that best of the rest region at the moment, behind Caraton, Peragic, Pedreño, Benham and Smith. What can the Dutchman do? Heads towards the line. Yeah, does just shoot himself ahead of Miklavčić in the end to go in towards 6th. Should have enough time to get back round again. Whether he's got enough tyres to get back round again, though, is a completely different question. It is only him and Miklavčić out there on track at the moment. We do normally see this in Q3, the calm before the storm. Everyone now just waiting in the pits. Who's going to blink first? Who's going to be the first man to head out? And can anyone dethrone Caraton in this qualifying session?
Of course, they're all sort of in stalemate at the moment, because they don't want to come out too early so that they catch traffic on their outlaps, but then they don't want to come out too late that they actually miss the session timer. But everyone should be able to get their timed lap-ins. It's just a case of waiting for this lull period to end. I'm seeing a Williams mechanic, it's an Alfa Romeo mechanic actually exiting the pit lane. So who is that going to be? Is that Longuet or is it Paragis? It's Nicolas Longuet, the Frenchman, clearly not happy with himself with that spin there, and he's looking to right his wrongs as soon as possible. With just over 3 minutes left in this session, he's going to be coming out for his outlap. And I'd imagine, Luke, that now that they've seen Longuet come out of the pits, everyone else is going to react.
Yeah, it looks like they're taking a bit of time. I think Jake Benham's just making his way down the pit lane now. Not surprised to see Longuet be the first one out there. I think not having set any representative time whatsoever in this session, he wants to make sure that if he does make a mistake on his first run, he's got another chance. Everyone else, you know, you can say has got something else to back them up. Longuet hasn't at the moment. He does not want to be starting in 10th place. It would be quite difficult for him to get a decent result from there. Might see some different strategies on this race, on this circuit. They are slightly different to what we saw on the last game. Soft medium's not necessarily the way to go around every track, so it will be interesting what we see in the race, what tyres drivers go on for. I think the majority will try that soft medium, but you never know. Someone might try for something different, might just go on a set of hard tyres. But 2 minutes 7 seconds remaining in this session. Longuet is the slowest in Q3 so far. What can he do as he becomes the first man to head onto his final run?
Yeah, of course, a lot of pressure riding on the shoulders of Nicolas Longuet, our Season 12 WOR champion, defending his crown in the coming season as he flies through Curva del Sol and down towards the Retroposter. A few drivers ahead of him on outlaps, but he shouldn't catch them all too soon, as that first sector time is just quicker than Alvaro Carreton. So already he's setting a precedent as to how fast he wants to go as he's rising up the hill through now Ferradura corner. Nicolas Longuet, the Frenchman, keeping it as fast as possible, 150 miles per hour in 6th gear through there, now slowing it down towards the downhill left-hander at Pinarino corner, rising up the hill once again down towards Pico de Pato this is, and this is looking like a very competitive lap from Nicolas Longuet, looking to right his wrongs that he spun at Junsao last time out. Can he nail it this time? Wow, that sector time is incredible. 50.2 for Nicolas Longuet, looking to strike back against Alvaro Carreton as now he comes opening up the DRS, hugging towards the inside line. Nicolas Longuet now to cross the line here. What's it going to be? It's a 1 minute 6.775, and he's 2/10 clear of anyone else at the top of the order. But for how much longer, Luke?
That middle sector, like, I was gobsmacked when I saw that sector time come up on my screen. Wowee, that was pretty damn quick then from our reigning champion. What has anyone else got to match with at the moment? We're not seeing anyone flying out there at the moment. I think everyone pretty much is leaving it right until the last minute. Pradchitz, though, it looks like he's on a hot lap at the moment. Only 7 thousandths up on his personal best, so needs a good exit if he wants to challenge Carreton here, because I think Longuet is absolutely gone. I wouldn't be surprised if that time remains until the end of the session. He is a bit of a specialist here around Interlagos. Pradchitz towards the line, can't dethrone Carreton, and in the end, an almost identical time to what he did earlier. We've got Luke Smith now. He is improving. Can he get himself onto the front row of the grid? He can indeed. 106.899, and the checkered flag is out. Baena into the pit. Stakulek towards the finish line. Gets himself up towards 4th place. I think it's going to take something special, though, to see Longuet not starting on pole.
Absolutely, Miklavcic coming up towards the line now. What can he do? He only goes into 8th position. Got a Red Bull of time and Shooter now in the final sector, 2/10 up on his previous best. Can he possibly get himself into the top 5 maybe here? He does indeed. He goes 4th position. Jake Benham in behind as well, 2.5 tenths up on his previous best. If he finds it in this final sector, we could see the Englishman on pole position as the Mercedes car opening up the DRS, coming up towards the line now. Jake Benham kissing the inside curb. He's going to cross the line. He's ahead of Longuet. He's on to pole position, but for how much longer is Alvaro Carreton is also up on his previous best across the line. The Spaniard, he can only manage 3rd position, and I think that is all of it done, Luke. Is Jake Benham on pole position. Longuet dethroned right at the last second. What a time. What a time from Jake Benham.
Brilliant from Benham there. 106.760. He was about a 10th of a second down coming out of the Sector 2 split, and Sector 3 is basically young style, put the throttle down, job done. There was no way, I thought, he could gain enough time, but somehow he has done it. Jake Benham proving why some have said for quite a few years he's the biggest star outside of esports. He is the one to watch in the future. 106.760, Season 11 champion on pole position. Season 12 champion will be starting alongside him. Tomek Parancic was up there throughout the entirety of the sessions, couldn't quite get it right on his final one. He is going to be starting in 7th place. And that 106.7 prediction for pole, proving out to be right. My prediction that Longue would take that pole position, proving to be wrong.
I mean, you were very, very close with that one there. Just 15 thousandths of a second separating Jake Benham and Nicholas Longue at the end of it all. And Alvaro Carton wasn't too far off, not even half a tenth behind Jake Benham. So that top 3 of Benham, Longue and Carton is going to be a very tasty fight come race time.
Yeah, you can see the rest of the order then. Luke Smith did a fantastic job on his final one to take 4th position. Timon Shooter, Stachelek, Parancic, Pedreño, Miklevcic and Baena. They are the top 10 drivers. The race will be coming up very shortly indeed. I don't think we are going to have a lobby restart, but we'll just wait and see if that is the case. Didn't look like there were any issues. Jake Benham certainly not having any issues. Absolutely superb lap from the young Englishman.
I mean, that was fantastic from Jake. I saw him practicing earlier today, and now he's come and he's absolutely smashed it out of the water. But can he convert that pole position into a race win? I believe it's 36 laps around this circuit, so it's going to be a grueling race for them, about 45 minutes. And we mentioned before the heat that especially in England, and I know Jake is English, so he is not going to be too happy sitting in his rig. I mean, I'm just sweltering right here. I can't imagine how it is with that Fanatec of his giving off all that heat.
Yeah, he has got a rig now. He's not still sat on the carpet, like right close up to his desk, like that famous picture that was going around on Twitter quite a few months ago. Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely baking at the moment. I can tell you, being overweight and 6'2", I'm not really built for these conditions. So God knows what the drivers are feeling like. I imagine Benham's feeling pretty happy, to be honest, no matter how hot he is. Longue, I mean, that was a superb time from him. So much pressure on him. He didn't have a banker lap in. If he'd got that wrong, he's starting in 10th place, and his chances of getting a win in what isn't worth anything in terms of a championship, but it's always nice to get an early win over your rivals. His chances would have been pretty much naught, but a superb run from him. Don't know what Benham found in that final sector, but did a fantastic job. Those two starting on the front row of the grid, and we've got some fast guys further back. Lucas Blakely obviously going for the last to first.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost forgot about Lucas Blakely being here. He's not been in the last 2 qualifying sessions, so it's been quite a while since we've seen him out there, but he is starting 20th position today. He's got a big task ahead of him, but if he pulls off some strategy shenanigans and gets some good overtakes done early on, we could see him in the fight for the lead right at the end of the race.
Yeah, we certainly could. And it is going to be the Interlagos circuit. 4.309 kilometres, 2.677 miles, 5 turns to the right, 10 to the left, and those 2 DRS zones should provide plenty of overtaking action. As we take a look at the tyres everyone has gone for, I think as we suspected, the majority of the field have gone for the mediums. A few drivers there on the hards. Interestingly, one of those, Tomek Parancic, may be feeling that he's a tiny bit out of place in this race, and maybe trying to see what he can do. If he can go up long on those, get the softs fresh at the end, he could be one to watch in the final few laps.
Absolutely, and I do like that these guys have their strategy sort of worked out, but it's a bit interesting to see no one opting for a set of the soft compounder tyres, so the pace at the start relatively is going to be quite close, especially in that top 6. Those hard runners are going to struggle a little bit, but around a circuit like Interlagos, very tricky to overtake here, so those hards, they could come good early.
Yes, and it all depends as well. If you get dropped in the train, it could be bad news for Parancic and anyone who gets stuck behind him. So those first 2 laps, if he can stay within DRS range, I would say he's got a chance. What can Lucas Blakely do starting from the last position? As I've got to say, I absolutely love this now. It looks so much more natural seeing everyone be able to drive up to their grid slot, doing some last-minute tyre warming, and doing some last-minute burnouts as well to just try to get some heat into those rear tyres to get that best possible run. We've got a Ferrari that is a bit further back. I think that might be George Dadair, who's had a bit of an issue with his connection, so hopefully he is able to rejoin. Otherwise, we're going to be effectively down for 19 drivers. All the cars then are in position, and we wait for the lights to come on here at Interlagos. We have got 5 lights. Quite a long hold, but they're out, and the Brazilian Grand Prix is underway, and Benham getting a better start then from the clean row of the grid, able to cover off Longue straight away. They stay as you were in towards turn 1. Luke Smith trying to work his way round the outside of Alvaro Cavaton. He's done it brilliantly, and Pieter Stakelek also able to get through as well. Nightmare start for Cavaton. There's been some drama in the background. There's carbon fibre going flying. I think I saw Blakely having to take some evasive action there, but all clean at the front of the order as Baena gets ahead of Pradcic, and I'm not sure who that was, someone running quite wide. I think that was Dzaleski having to take evasive action as they're nearly going 3 wide here into Pinarino. Someone is going to have to yield. Pedredo down the inside of Pradcic. Butcher trying to bully his way down the inside of Ika Baena there. Jake Benham is completely oblivious to this. He gets the lead. Longue in second. Smith and Stakelek both jumping Cavaton.
And they're fighting very, very hard for the lower end positions. Peragic being swarmed by everyone around him who are on those grippy and medium tyres. There's a car off the circuit. That was the Haas of Drake Dempsey. He's been able to rejoin safely as Ika Baena looks to make another position up on Tomek Peragic now as he's using up the battery down the main straight. But in that slipstream, it's very difficult to overtake here as they complete the first lap. Jake Benham leading either way out front as we see a pit stop from Dzaleski down the inside of Tomek Peragic. Goes Ika Baena, two very aggressive drivers, and this has not worked out well. The pair of them sent into a spin. Neither of them wanted to yield, and unfortunately it's netted them both down into 16th and 17th here.
Yeah, definitely both probably could have done something to avoid that there. Pradcic giving Baena the squeeze. Baena going flat out on the curb. We know what it was like on previous games. On these lower Formula 1 cars, he's always going to leave you spinning around. And what looked like possibly a promising race for them, they are down in 17th and 18th. Dzaleski out there on a set of the hard tyres. Lead car now on the hard tyres is Ben Chisabo Conye actually in 12th place. But he's already 1.4 seconds off Will Lewis, who himself has fallen off the back of the train. And the front two drivers actually breaking away at the moment. Benham and Longue have dropped Stakelek from the DRS zone. I don't think they'd have imagined in their wildest dreams that they'd have been able to do this at the start of this race.
Yep, Stakelek going to try his best to get back within that DRS range. He's somehow set the fastest lap of the race, but lost DRS as they're continuing on their run at the moment. Jake Benham now going to be feeling the pressure from Nicolas Longue, who's got the DRS and is using some of the battery down the Retta Aposta in towards the Cida de Lago. Here goes Longue to the inside of Jake Benham. Who's going to yield? Who's going to go for the move? It is Nicolas Longue getting ahead of Jake Benham in towards the second sector. Does Benham want to fight this one back up Ferradura? No, he does not. So there is a change for the top two positions. It's Longue on lap number 3 getting ahead of Jake Benham. Oh, Stakelek.
Oh, it's Stakelek. Sorry, yeah, Stakelek's gone round there. Did you see what happened?
He just dropped it on his own, I'm pretty sure, through Ferradura.
Wow, bit of a strange one. Whether he's hit the curb and it's completely overheated those tyres now. Stakelek not having fun whatsoever after a fantastic start to the race, being able to jump ahead of Cavaton. Also overtaking Luke Smith as well. Smith dropped back behind Cavaton, and Stakelek dropping to last but one. Before that happened, I was about to say, don't know why this surprises me anymore, but Lucas Blakely has gained 8 positions on the first 3 laps. Yes, there's been a few issues. Will Lewis also manages to gain 8 positions. I don't know, he said he's not got much of a setup on, so fantastic job from him. And Diamond Shooter managing to work his way past Luke Smith, the Dutchman now in towards 4th place. And if Longue and Benham are smart here, they might be able to work together and help keep themselves clear of Cavaton. The last thing they want to be doing now is fighting too hard, fighting wheel to wheel, too much through the corners, and just allowing this train to catch back up, because they've got a brilliant opportunity to finish 1st and 2nd here.
Absolutely, and Caraton is not a driver that you want to have in your DRS. Of course, a championship contender last season in WOR, and he's already dropping himself close to the 1 second window that he needs to get DRS, and I'd imagine this train is going to catch up to the back of the top 2. There it is, Caraton now 9/10 behind Jake Benham, so he is going to have DRS if he can maintain this gap off the exit of Yun Sao, and that means that we are going to have a 9-car train for the lead of this Grand Prix. Whether anyone's going to be able to overtake, that remains to be seen though. Yeah,
Luke Smith was looking pretty close to the back of Diamond Shooter. In the end though, nothing doing for him, as that DRS doesn't look like it's opening very much on the Red Bull compared to some of the other cars. Pedreño was also closing in on the Alpine of Smith, but again, nothing doing on this occasion there, just all staying as they were, and this is probably the way it's going to be for the first stint of the race. This is typical of every Formula 1 race, whether it's on the game, whether it's in real life, although there was plenty of action today's. First stint is all a bit calm. Yes, you get the odd moves. Second stint, once everyone's on some fresh tyres, all hell breaks loose, because they really know that is the time where you've got to make your money, and that is where you've got to make the moves to take the victory in this race. Blakely's made another move. He's got himself ahead of Perenier. Will Lewis is going to be his next target for 10th and 11th. Both of them having some fantastic starts. Such a shame with what happened for Pravacic, dropping down the order, because yes, he'd lost a few places on his hard tyres, but he wasn't looking too bad.
Yeah, and of course he would have phased into the race not too far from here, so it's a real shame that Pravacic had that collision with Ikabaenya, and now they're going to have to try their best to just do damage limitation if they want to salvage a good position. And Tomek Pravacic getting by the AI of Jorge Nader. Meanwhile, his rivals up front, they're now following close, tight-knit in a train here.
Yeah, they are. Pedreño looking pretty close to Luke Smith there, just sort of showing his nose to the Alpine man, but he's doing more than that now. He's alongside the veteran Aposta, that Alpine, with some supreme straight line speed though, and Pedreño not alongside into Destino de Largo, and if you aren't alongside, it's the wiser thing to do. It's to just drop back, especially when you're both in the same esports stable at Race Clutch. Pedreño happy to just stay behind Smith for now, but certainly looks like he's got some good pace out of Young Zhao and some good pace coming off of the ZRS and Curva de Sol. So maybe we could see Pedreño get himself into the top 5 there. Was fastest in Q2. Let's not forget, Benham was fastest in, well, the final part of qualifying. And then obviously fastest in Q1 we saw was Alvaro Cavaton, and he's in 3rd place at the moment. And he's really been able to work his way up. Smith, as we've seen from so many other cars, having a bit of wobble coming out of Young Zhao. Jake Benham able to get alongside Nicholas Longuet, and they're going 3 wide here now down the start finish straight. Benham takes the lead of the race. Cavaton up towards 2nd place. Can the Williams man work it all the way around the outside? No, he does not, but that is how close the pace is between our front 3 at the moment, in the space of a few inches, never mind a few metres. Jake Benham takes the lead. Cavaton into 2nd. Longuet now down to 3rd.
Longuet was completely swallowed up by the pair of them, and they sort of performed a pincer move, just going either side of him and then closing off the gap in front. That was well executed by the pair of them. Longuet not going to be too upset about that one though, because it's only lap number 7 and he's going to have opportunities later on in the Grand Prix. He now gets to save some of his energy and follow in the slipstream of these guys and save some tyres as well. So I don't think Longuet is going to be complaining too much. It makes for a great spectacle for us as commentators and the spectators as well. So very lovely to see that all of these drivers, they're not afraid to scrap it out on lap number 7.
No, they're not. We said they might keep this first stint a bit relaxed. There's nothing of the type at the moment. Simon Shooter had a mini moment coming through the middle sector. I thought that might give Luke Smith a bit of an opportunity, but not on this occasion, as the front 3 having a much calmer lap on this occasion. Then you've got the next 3 sort of following along. Shooter, Smith and Pedreño, Butcher, Miklavcic and Drake Dempsey just hanging on to the back of this train at the moment. Might be in range of the undercut in a few laps time if they feel the need to, as again Pedreño gets a bit of run coming off of Curva del Sol, but unless he gets a lot closer than that, and unless Smith makes a mistake, I don't think we're going to see Pedreño bothering about the move too much. We've still got all 20 runners in, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Obviously Nader has disconnected, and I don't believe he's been able to get back in, so a shame for him after, I think what was for him a disappointing qualifying. He thought he had the pace into the top 10, and he's not been able to show what he can do in the race at this moment in time. There's some battles going on further down as well. Baena trying to get his way up through the field in 16th place. He's on the back of Istvan Pukki, and Lucas Blakely in 11th. Not really been able to break away from Perenier and Charbot Cognier too much at the moment. The Hungarian doing a good job on those halves.
Absolutely, as we're just sort of seeing that Lucas Blakely's forming his own mini DRS train in behind him, and he is catching the back of Will Lewis, who's not too far off the back of the top 9, who are all scrapping for the lead of this race. So we could see a potential 11-car train for the lead of this race once those guys actually manage to catch up, and Lucas Blakely seems poised to possibly go for an overtake on Will Lewis, as in towards Desida de Largo. Don't believe he's close enough at all, actually. It's in towards the braking zone. He's closed that gap massively. He's now, oh dear, having a slide through the exit of turn number 4 and in through turn 5. He's managed to hold the car, though, and he's now very, very close to the rear of Will Lewis.
Yes, very close indeed. Perhaps a bit too close to the curb coming through Desida de Largo there, but Lucas Blakely comfortable in 11th place at the moment. Wouldn't really want to have been stuck behind the young Englishman coming through this middle sector, because this is where you are going to lose the most time in around this circuit, stuck behind another car, and that could be an issue when it comes to the strategy, when it comes to the pit stops. If you get caught behind someone who hasn't pitted in that middle sector, you might be in all sorts of trouble. I think Will Lewis is going to be in all sorts of trouble here, because I don't think no matter what he does, he's going to have any possibility of keeping the Scotsman behind him. Blakely blasts past, and there he is, Lucas now into the top 10. Can he get onto the back of Dempsey, Miklavčić and Butcher? That would be a supreme achievement for the man who, let's not forget, as we get onto lap 10 of this race, he started down in last.
The steaming's got Lucas Blakely ever potent on this grid as Ben Coney just in behind gets past up the inside of Simon Perigny through Desida de Largo, but Perigny looks like he's going to try and fight this one back up towards Ferradura. Can't quite get the run on that Alpine car, so he's going to remain in 13th position, but Lucas Blakely in 10th position after starting plumb last and having some close calls at the start of this race, having to drop back early on to avoid an incident. He's done very, very well for himself and he's closing towards the back of Drake Dempsey, who seemingly has been dropped by the top 8.
Yeah, it could be tough for Dempsey now. We're hearing here that Lucas has some damage. If that is true, if I was McLaren, I'd find out what damage he'd got and maybe just change their car in real life to fix that. Who knows? It might make them a bit quicker, because it's certainly not affecting Blakely at the moment. Dempsey comes in towards the pits. I think realising he'd been dropped outside of that train, has to do something different. It will be hard tyres for the American and Simon Perigny also on there as well. The mediums, not as useful as tyre around this circuit as they have been on previous games. We'll be interested to see how that changes as the game comes on, as people come out with better setups that generally only make themselves a tiny bit faster, but do of course keep them in a good position and keep their tyres in a much better condition as well. Benham then being hunted down by Cavaton at the moment. Longuet behind, Shooter, Smith and Pedreño still keeping them under close observation, and that's always the thing. If you're in one of these trains, you can't afford to go for a dive bomb, because if you're Cavaton, you make a move, you get it slightly wrong, Longuet could come past you, Shooter, Smith, Pedreño could all come flying past, and all of a sudden, you know, it's a big risk for not much reward at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the opposite can happen, you know, if you make a mistake and have a slide and everyone checks up into each other, there could be some big damage for some of these guys. So it is very risky, but he's going to find a way up the inside and towards the first corner. Alvaro Carreton going down the inside of Jake Benham at the beginning of lap number 12. With just a third of the way through in this race, and Alvaro Carreton now leads the Grand Prix for the first time here. He's got Jake Benham in behind him. Nicholas Longuet not too far off the back at the moment. Shooter, Luke Smith, Pedreño and Alfie Butcher and Miklavčić as well, all following in this nice top 8 train. And so far, Luke, it's been quite a nice race for these guys.
Yeah, it's been a bit more eventful further back. We just saw Ika Baena there going for a move on Istvan Pukki, which probably was a bit more BTCC, whether that's British or Brazilian Touring Car Championship. I'll let you sort that one out for yourself. But yeah, contact between the two of them. And Danny Lusing said thank you very much. He was able to get through on Pukki as well. So the McLaren man dropping from 13th to 15th, Baena and Lusing both gaining a position. Going to be intriguing as we just change to the gap to the leader to keep an eye on what sort of times Dempsey and Perigny can do at the moment. I've commentated on races around Bahrain on here before, and the warm-up on the hard tyres was absolutely dreadful, and the overcut turned out to be the best thing. Dempsey on a similar pace to those at the front at the moment, hasn't got any DRS, not too far though before he'll be on the back of his teammate Stachelek, so that could be an intriguing one in the latter stages of this race, as all the lead cars deciding to stay out, and Baena closing up to the back of Perigny. Is this going to be a repeat of what we saw earlier on? Not on this occasion. The Spaniard quite content to just stay in place. He's doing a good job on keeping hold of those medium tyres, as are our front 10 drivers. Cavaton leading from Benham, Longuet, Shooter, Smith, Pedreño, Butcher, Miklavčić, Blakely and Lewis.
I'd imagine we're still a few laps out from some drivers wanting to come into the pit lane, but I'd imagine as soon as one of them boxes, then that's going to cause a sort of chain reaction, trying to cover off the undercut. But then they could also be having that sort of thinking that you were implying, that, you know, the overcut could be better here, and warming up the tyres just in general on this game seemingly takes a lot more work. So the undercut is a little bit less powerful than what it was on the last game, but Luke Smith getting close to the rear of Time and Shooter, headed in towards the first corner, following in the wheel tracks of that Red Bull car as he defends to the inside line. Luke Smith has to find an avenue. He's going to go later on the break down the inside of Time and Shooter. The Dutchman does not want to give this one up. It's going to be wheel to wheel now off the exit of the curve at El Sol. Luke Smith to the inside line. Time and Shooter with the better momentum around the outside. Can he find an opportunity to go back up the inside in towards the Cedar Lago? Does not seem like it. And after that short skirmish, Luke Smith has found himself re-overtaking Time and Shooter. But at that, they have cost themselves a little bit of time. So if they can't make up that gap, the top three could begin to streak away here.
Yeah, they could do. That always happens. That's always a risk you take when you go for the battle in. Lucas Blakely coming into the pits, onto the hard tyres. Perhaps not too surprising if he has got a bit of front wing damage. As now Ruben Pedreño, very opportunistic there going in towards Pedreño. Pedreño works his way past Time and Shooter. That is the Spaniard in towards the top five. And we were talking about tyre warm-up being slightly different on this game. Let's not forget, as well as the many bodywork regulation changes for F1 2022, there was also the changes to the tyres as well. Going to the 18-inch wheels over the 13-inch means they're a bit lower profile tyre. They are a bit stiffer, so you've got a bit less of that sidewall flexing. Not quite as easy to generate some heat straight away. We're also hearing Jake Benham might be just having a few audio issues at the moment, which is less than ideal. Might be something to look at in the pit stop, whether we can turn some of the audio off, depending on how early you can get it done, obviously, with the cinematic versus the realistic pit lane. But not doing too bad at the moment. He's in second place. Stekelek and Lewis also coming in off their hard tyres, and a 5-second penalty for the Haas for speeding in the pit lane. Not really being Pieter's day.
Yeah, having that spin early on in this race, he's now going to pit just before the halfway mark for a set of the hard compound of tyre. And he seemed to have got that pit stop on the nail, but that 5 seconds will come back to haunt him at the end of the race unless he makes another pit stop and is able to serve it in the pit lane. So on lap number 15, still no one in the top 8 at the moment has come into the pits. The highest driver we've seen in this race come into the box is Drake Dempsey. He's come out about 3.7 seconds ahead of Will Lewis, so he's been able to extend that gap. As Alvaro Carreton, I thought he was coming into the pit lane, and they've all, once again, Luke, opted to stay out. So these top drivers adamant on not coming into the pit first.
Whether they think they can make the medium soft strategy work around here, we will wait and see, because that will be very intriguing if that is certainly the case. Pavacic into the pits off a set of the hard tyres, so not quite sure why he's coming in this early for them, whether he has picked up a tiny bit of damage in that Alfa Romeo. Here he is heading down towards the pits for Challengers champion. No, medium tyres going on, and if he's planning to take those mediums 21 laps, you never know. These leaders might just be able to make this work to stretch them out for a set of the softs. In which case, yes, they'll drop back behind Dempsey. They might drop behind a few others. But they're not going to be in too bad of a situation, are they? It's Pedreño and Smith now battling. We've seen a few times Ruben Locazzo was going to go for it. He attempted it into Bingo de Pato. Smith has now dropped outside of DRS range of Longo. This could be the best opportunity for the Aston Martin man. I think there was a bit of contact there.
Oh, Luke Smith sliding on the exit of Yun Sao, and that has allowed for Pedreño to just ease on by ahead of him. But I don't think Luke Smith wants to give this up. They're both into the pit lane. They're going to be racing to the line, and it is Pedreño getting in first. And that is the first two of the top 8 that have decided to come into the box. And I'd imagine now, Luke, that is going to cause a chain reaction, and all these drivers are going to push on their in laps because they're going to be taking this tyres off at the end of this run, and also they're going to regen that battery. So for the next lap or so, these drivers are going to be pushing hard.
They are indeed. I'll tell you someone who is pushing hard, Drake Dempsey at the moment. Let's just watch where he is relative to these guys. Luke Smith seems to have lost out a lot in that pit lane for whatever was happening, but there we go. Drake Dempsey has managed to undercut Luke Smith quite comfortably here, and Will Lewis and Simon Perrinier aren't too far behind either, so that's going to be an interesting one to see now. Can Ruben Pedreño get those hard tyres working quickly enough to jump himself up towards a possible challenge for the lead of this race. We think Jake Benham is going to be going for a set of the soft tyres. He's got plenty of ERS at the moment, which is normally your indication whether drivers are coming into the pits, because if they are, they completely burn through their battery as the front three carry on once more. Time and Shooter also carrying on. Miklavcic, the only one of that lead group to come into the pits this time around. So it's heading that way, that we are going to see some split strategies here. Some thinking the medium hard is the best, some clearly thinking that medium soft is the way to go.
And definitely the medium to soft is the very risky strategy, because those softs, they don't last too long around here, and on the last game it was certainly easier to do the medium to soft, but these guys, they're certainly taking the risk, and why not? In an Esports Invitational, there's no real incentive to win this race aside from the glory, so they're going to try alternate strategies that they might not have opted for on a regular occasion, just see if they work and test the waters. And I'm really liking it here, because it's going to make for a very interesting end to the race. The runners like Pedreño and Miklavcic and Dempsey, who've stopped earlier, are going to have that undercut, but then they're going to have the weaker tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix, which is going to make for a thrilling end to this race.
Yeah, it certainly is as well. It's going to be very intriguing. Let us know who you think is going to take the victory at the moment as Cavaton into the pits at the halfway point then, off the set of the medium tyres. This will be intriguing to see what he goes for, because I can't see him, unless he's going to be so gentle on the first few laps, getting a set of softs to the end of this race. And no, it is going to be white-walled hard tyres going on to the Williams then. Cavaton comes out. And again, keeping an eye on Ruben Pedreño. He's just making his way across the start-finish line now. So I think Cavaton is going to be clear of Pedreño here. And maybe that's what he was watching out for. Maybe he did want to do the medium-soft strategy, but he didn't want to get stuck in any traffic. He is well clear of Pedreño. Cavaton leading this race then out of those that have come into the pits. The actual leader, though, Jake Benham, 0.3 seconds behind Nicholas, 0.3 seconds ahead of Nicholas Longay.
And then they're not going to want to be undercut here by Alvaro Carreton, who is now going to be trying to get some heat into those hard tyres. It's very tricky on this new game with the lower profile 18-inch rims to actually generate the heat into the rubber. As either of these guys going to come in? Very late dive into the box comes Longay, which is going to leave Jake Benham on his lonesome for the first time in this race. The top three following in a pack for so long, and now they're going to be completely split out here as Longay making his way towards his box at the end of the garage, and it is going to be a set of the hard compounder tyre going onto that Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, so you'd imagine then Baena, Shooter, Butcher and Benham clearly thinking that we can do this. We can manage to get these tyres right until the end of the race. And we were talking about tyre warm-up. Look at this between Longay and Cavaton here. Alvaro Cavaton has dropped behind Nicholas Longay. Stopping out that one extra lap has worked, but you can see the Frenchman straight away. He's having to stake his way down the straight to try and get some temperature into those hard tyres. This is not over yet. Cavaton on the back of Longay, round the outside of Ferraggiova. Is he able to make that one work? Longay initially gave him a bit of room, and then was quite happy just to edge the Williams towards and off the edge of the circuit. So Cavaton drops behind Longay. He's got so much more temperature though in his tyres. Can he get the move done down the DRS straight? Pedreño not too far behind these either. Jake Benham now comes into the pits. We'll see whether the Mercedes man is going to go onto a set of the hard tyres or whether he's going to go onto a set of softs, and we'll see whether Longay can hold on to the net lead of this race, because here comes Alvaro Cavaton in the Williams. So much more overspeed. Cavaton gets that move done. He is up in towards 5th place, and he's going to be pretty damn close here to Jake Benham on the pit exit. You can see the dots of the Mercedes van, and I think we're going to see him pop just behind the Williams and just behind the Alfa Romeo as well. Cavaton, Longay, Benham. That's your new top three.
So pitting that 1 lap earlier for Alvaro Caraton has worked out very nicely. Parajas retiring in the pit lane here. Jake Benham coming out in now a net P3 at this point, and he's got to work his way up to the rear of the top 2. But in all of that fighting, Caraton burnt his resources. He's now only got 32% of the battery remaining, which is going to mean it's going to be difficult for him, especially leading this train at the moment, for him to regenerate that battery. Longue's got 65% as well, so he has got bountiful resources to play with at this point. So at the moment, it is certainly far from over, as the top 2 still staying out on circuit. Alfie Butcher and Time Shooter, they are going to be looking for that medium to soft strategy.
Yeah, they are indeed. But Baena comes into the pits now. Ruben Pedreño was really closing up to the back of Jake Benham. I imagine Jake's used a burst of that hybrid electrical energy then to just ensure that he stays safe from Pedreño. Apparently quite surprised that he came out behind them. I think drivers are still having to adjust to how things work at the moment. And if you are, you know, on a set of the hard well, I say that, the undercut worked out for Longue on Benham, as there we go. Longue now takes the net lead of this race down the inside of Caraton into Decino de Largo, but Caraton fights straight back. He's a lot further ahead this time and retakes that position. It was such a fine margin because Caraton, he called it exactly right, just managing to get things work, you know, just getting enough of a tyre warm up to get the position. Longue came so close to staying ahead of Caraton, just couldn't get his tyres warmed up enough, and Jake Benham, in the end, it was more conventional for him. The undercut worked out for the 2 cars in front of him. He's got to see what he can do on 1 lap fresher tyres.
Absolutely, and that's not going to make too much of a difference at this point, but towards the end of the race, when these tyres begin to fall off, it is going to be very difficult for Alvaro Caraton to keep them behind, as to begin lap number 23 this is, I believe, or it might be 24, as Jake Benham has set the fastest lap of the race. He's now well and truly back in the fight for the lead of this race, as Longue, he tried to go for the move last time by at the Cedar Lago, couldn't quite make it stick. See if he goes for it again in towards the braking zone at the 75 meter mark. Doesn't seem like it for the time being, and he's going to remain behind Alvaro Caraton for a few more laps. I think, Luke, we're going to enter what we sort of saw towards the end of the last stint, where the drivers are just going to be following in behind each other, trying to conserve these tyres and their battery right until the end of the race. And then we're going to see maybe in the last 5 or 6 laps some real proper scrapping.
Yes, what might make the drivers think, ooh, I just need to get a bit more of a move on, is this man, Alfie Butcher, about 3.5, 4 seconds off the net lead of this race, as Time Shooter is still staying out there. He has come out on a set of the soft tyres. Next up is Primoz Miklevčić. I don't know if those two are communicated together, but if they are, I imagine Miklevčić isn't going to put up much of a challenge. Then it's Dempsey and Smith. Then it's a bit of a gap to that lead train. Is the lead going to change this time around? No. Longue stays behind once more, but Butcher's gone for a set of the soft tyres. Shooter clearly thinks he's gone too early as Butcher and thinks you need to go a bit longer to make a set of soft tyres work, but he's going to be quick at the end of this race. Can those on the hard tyres afford to wait around and just wait for those other softs to catch up?
Going to make for a very, very nice ending with just about 13 laps left in this Grand Prix. Those softs should be good to go to the end, but they're not going to feel good towards the end of it. So Alfie Butcher's certainly got to get himself into gear and catch up to the runners in front of him. Realistically, in this race, he's got to be fighting for about 6th position. Luke Smith has well and truly been dropped by the top, well, I guess the net top 4 at the moment, which is Caraton, Longue, Benham and Pedreño. It's just a matter of time before Time Shooter comes into the pit lane, and as I say that, he's pulled off to the left hand side, and the last runner to pit in this race is now coming in here.
Yeah, so no more talking about the battle for the net lead. This is very shortly going to be the battle for the actual lead then. Caraton, Longue, Benham and now Pedreño, who's still hanging on to the back of these guys just a tiny bit further behind, as Alfie Butcher, unsurprisingly, sets the fastest lap of the race at a 109.113 on that set of the soft tyres. Longue closes in once more on Caraton down the Zeno de Largo. Just can't get close enough on this occasion. He had that one opportunity earlier on, which I'm now starting to wonder whether Caraton made a slight mistake or whether there was some contact. It seemed Longue was quite compliant in letting Caraton back ahead after that happened, but Benham's got onto the back of them. We'll see if he can make the best use of his tyres. And Butcher, unsurprisingly, has already cruised his way past Miklavčić. It's a fine balancing act now for the young man. He's got to go hard. He's got to get ahead of Dempsey and Smith as soon as possible. But he's got to make sure that when he catches up to those front four, which I think he will, he's got to make sure he's got some sort of life in those softs.
Yeah, already 2 laps sold there. Not going to be too bad at the moment. They're still going to be the best tire as Ikabayan on his set of softs is spinning. And Alfie Butcher almost sent spinning out of Yun Sao. He's been able to hold on to the car though. And he's looking up the inside of Drake Dempsey. Headed in towards the first corner. DRS enabled for the pair of them into the braking zone is where Butcher should have the advantage as he can go later and harder into the braking zone. He gets that move done. He's now into 6th position following in the wheel tracks of Luke Smith, and then it's going to be 2.8 seconds around that between himself and the top 4. So when will Alfie Butcher get his move on and find a way into that top 5?
Yeah, this is where things could be quite a bit awkward for Alfie Butcher now through this middle sector. If he can make the move through this middle part of the circuit, he could be laughing because I think he'd break away and be safe from Smith overtaking him using the DRS. If he gets too close, he's going to be stuck behind, just overheating the tyres, losing a tiny bit of performance. And that 1 or 2% might make the whole difference in around 11 laps time. Lucas Blakely recovering from, obviously, an incident at the start. We saw Antoine Zaleski pick up some damage earlier on. We saw Blakely running wide as well. He's still in 12th place. Still got a good opportunity of getting a top 10 in this race. As we look at the penalty situation, 8 seconds for Stakelek, 3 seconds for Will Lewis, who is the next target for Lucas Blakely. And talking of next targets, Butcher on the back of Smith. Is he close enough on this occasion? Doesn't look like he's going to be able to make the move in towards turn 1. And he's almost burnt through all his VRS here, so this could be tricky.
Absolutely, as they're headed down on towards the Retro Aposta, and he's got such a good exit on Luke Smith, who pulls off to the left-hand side, whether that's to defend or to just let him by without any issues. Well, I believe that is the former, as now Alfie Butcher has got 3.1 seconds between himself and Rune Pedreño, who is at the rear of that top 4. But do not forget, Timon Shuto's just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, is just a stone's throw away from the rear of that Alpha Tauri. 2 laps only on this set of the soft compound of tyres. He should be able to go to the end and still have some decent pace on him, but following behind these slower hard runners is not going to do him any good. Drake Dempsey locking up there and almost going straight on is going to do him very nicely as he now moves up into 7th position, and he's got Luke Smith now in his crosshairs.
Yeah, I think Shooter owns Dempsey a drink for that lock up there. Definitely would have helped him out quite a lot, and I'm sure he won't be bothered too much about that. Luke Smith almost looks as if he's trying to fight back here, but further up, Longe and Benham having a little ding-dong in towards turn number 1. Benham briefly got ahead. Longe fights back, and Alvaro Cavaton needs to keep an eye out here because he might find himself getting dragged back towards this. Luke Smith ended up completing that move on Alfie Butcher, and now Timon Shooter alongside Alfie Butcher. Luke Smith almost blocking Timon in here. Can he get 2 cars into Decino de Largo? How that didn't end up in contact, I'll never know. And now Butcher's fighting back.
Oh, towards Ferragero, it can't end well, and it hasn't. Alfie Butcher sent into a spin, and he's gone around here. His day is done. He's not going to get any good position. It's unsalvageable for him. Timon Shooter's still within this fight. He's got Luke Smith ahead of him, but wow, Alfie Butcher's really going to be upset about that. I think there was a slight bit of desync as well. It didn't look like natural contact. They were sort of alongside each other, and then they just kind of bounced off each other, and Alfie Butcher went into a spin, so there might be some desync at play, but the matter of fact is that Alfie Butcher, after what could have been a very strong race for him, has now been shuttled down the order, as at the top of the order, Longe getting close to Caraton as they head down towards Curva del Sol. Can he make this move in towards the Cida de Largo finally?
Yeah, perhaps maybe getting a bit of a move on after what Benham did to him on the previous lap here. Yeah, such a shame for Butcher that contact happened. He was looking pretty good. How there wasn't contact heading into the Cida de Largo? I thought Shooter was heading straight for the side of Luke Smith. Had to go over the curb to take avoiding action. That's what gave Butcher the run. That's what led to the contact you saw. But Butcher becomes our 3rd retirement in this race, joining Baena and Pradcic on the sidelines. Who's going to be heading to the pit lane, though, as a victor in 7.5 laps' time? Cavaton still just staying ahead of Longe at the moment. Benham, whether this is a deliberate choice, he's quite happy to just stay further back. Maybe if there's a bit of contact between these front two drivers, he might be in the best position to take advantage of that. And Pedreño also in with him as Antoine Zaleski retires from this race. Pookie and Lusink having a battle further back for 13th and 14th place, but we're going to keep an eye, quite understandably, on this lead battle at the moment. Longuet got closer to turn 1 on the previous lap, decided not to do it. He's a lot closer on this occasion, but there's yellow flags.
Oh, yeah, that's for Zaleski. Retiring in the pit lane, and for some reason the cars just decide to come out on circuit once again. It's going to be the same in towards the Cida de Largo. Actually, it's just been cleared up now, so they are free to race as Stahalek's retired on circuit there. He's crashed at the just before the DRS zone underneath the gantry, and I don't know, is that a safety? It is indeed a safety car. So another twist in the tail here, Luke. The safety car coming out here on lap number 30 of 36 here. That is certainly going to throw a spanner in the work for some drivers. And what is going to be the call for these drivers here?
Well, what do you do in this situation? We can see there straight away, Danny Lusink deciding not hanging around. Soft tyres going on his car. Diamond Shooter could be one to watch out for here in the Red Bull. He's obviously got some life left in those soft tyres. How useful it's going to be if everyone comes into the pits behind him and puts on a set of softs, I'm not quite so sure here. I think you've got to come in, you've got to go for those soft tyres towards the end of the race, because no hards are going to be a city duck against anyone who does come in. 4 sets of the soft tyres. Caraton stays out. Longuet into the pits. Benham staying out as well. Pedreño stays out. Smith comes into the pits. Diamond Shooter will almost certainly stay out there on the circuit, but Caraton, Benham and Pedreño, a brave call from those three, all sticking out there on the hard tyres. They're gonna have quite a few issues, I think, getting these tyres warmed up after the safety car. They're just hoping it stays out until at least lap 32, possibly lap 33.
I mean, maybe they just didn't expect so many drivers to come into the pit lane. Alvaro Caraton, I think he thought about it and then decided to duck out of the way, whether that was to bait Longuet or maybe he was just indecisive. I don't think this is going to work out in their favour. Diamond Shooter's going to be in a great position because we're going to see spending a few laps under the safety car. He can save his soft tyres very easily here, and they're essentially going to have 6 laps of wear despite being worn for maybe 8 or 9. So Diamond Shooter is in a great position here. Longuet has only got 1 car in between himself and Room Pedreño, who he was fighting with early on in this race. We might not see any DRS left here. There's just so many factors at play. When is the safety car going to come in? I do not know, and hopefully it makes for an interesting end to what has been already a fantastic Esports Invitational.
Yeah, it's certainly been a fascinating race as well. Stackerlight just, I imagine, getting it wrong out of Youngstown and just spinning his way around, crashing out. We've seen quite a few drivers do that over the years. Obviously on this fast straight 2003 was where Mark Webber had an enormous shunt, and then Fernando Alonso, ignoring yellow flags, had an even bigger one into the debris of Mark Webber. Thankfully got away without too much injury, although he did have to miss the podium ceremonies. But Caraton leads the race. Benham and Pedreño behind him. I imagine Pedreño on his 15-lap old hard tyres could be extremely vulnerable. Diamond Shooter there on fresher softs. They're slightly fresh, but obviously Longuet, Smith, Dempsey and the rest that have come into the pits, they've got no tyre worries whatsoever. It's going to be fascinating, I think, to see how Shooter's tyres manage in this situation. If this works out, he's got a brilliant chance of winning this race. If it goes wrong, he could be swamped by the pack along with those front 3.
You know what this safety car also does? It brings a certain Lucas Blakely into the fray. We've not seen too much of Blakely running in the top 10. That was due to his damage early on that he had to get repaired, and he's just not been able to catch up to any of the drivers. Now he's 9th place at the moment on a set of the fresh soft compound of tyre. He could be sort of a dark horse here if he's able to get past the likes of McLavchich, Dempsey and Luke Smith. He could be challenging right onto the rear of Longuet come the end of the race, even though there is only just a few laps left here. I'd imagine, well, we normally when it gets into the 3rd sector, we get the message from race control that safety cars coming in. Seems like we're going to do 1 more lap here, meaning we're going to see on lap 34 a 3-lap shootout for the win of the race.
Yeah, we talked about Shooter maybe owning Drake Dempsey a drink for that lock-up earlier on. I think Caraton, Benham, Pedreño and Shooter might owe George Today's internet/electricity provider a drink here, because his AI car is cruising around at the back of the circuit, and that is why the safety car is staying out. for 1 extra lap, of course. So we're going to get 4 laps of racing action, I believe, when everything settles itself out. He will catch up, and that is just 1 less lap for those on the softs to catch their way up. It's 1 less lap for those on the hards to have to hold on. And it's always an intriguing safety car restart as the lap timer does a bit late, tick over to lap number 33. So there'll be 3 laps of racing action, only 1 with the DRS. It's an interesting restart because it's such a long straight. If Cavaton goes early, he just gives Benham, Pedreño and the pack a massive slipstream. So he will leave it right until the last minute to put the hammer down. What that means is there's almost always some carnage into turn 1.
And hopefully, well, we know the level of drivers that is on this grid. Hopefully they can avoid that. And I trust that they all can. I mean, there's been some incidents of desync in the last few weeks, and it was certainly very, very bad at Abu Dhabi earlier on Monday evening it was this week. So let's hope that we avoid that, as the safety car should be coming in at the end here. All 15 cars, even though we've got 14 runners left in this race, because I'm not going to count George Nader here. We've got 14 cars scrapping it out. There it is, the message from Race Control Luke. Safety car in this lap. It's now Alvaro Caraton's discretion as to when and where we get underway.
And it is all up to Caraton, controlling the pace in the Williams. He becomes the effectual safety car here. He's got to make sure, obviously, that the safety car gets into the pit lane to the safety car line. Otherwise, he'll be in big trouble and the game will force him to slam on the brakes. But he's leaving it late, as we expect, and there he goes. And do you know what? Benham has got a pretty good run here on the back of Alvaro Caraton. We're into green flags with 3 laps to go. Benham sweeps it around the outside in towards turn number 1. Can he make it work? That is superb from the young Englishman. He takes the lead in this race, and Alvaro Caraton is trying to fight with him. Pedreño's had an incident. He's dropped right towards the back. They're squeezing each other down the back straight. Down the inside goes Caraton. Can he take that position back? Benham has to run slightly off the circuit. Caraton just about holding on for now. Can Benham go around the outside of Ferrajova? That didn't end well earlier when Caraton tried it. And everything just settles down for now. Shooter has dropped behind Longue. And look at the grip Nicholas is going to have on those soft tyres. Surely there's no way these front 2 can hold on. Down the inside goes for champion.
Yeah, Pico de Pato, he's made that move stick on Jake Benham now. Luke Smith as well, trying to enter the skirmish, as well as Time and Shooter. They're going to run side by side in towards Jun's south corner. But Nicholas Longue now, he's going to use the battery to close the gap towards Alvaro Caraton in towards the final straight here to begin lap number 35. We've just got 2 laps left to go in this race, as here comes Longue closing down the start-finish straight. He's going to look towards the inside line on Alvaro Caraton. He makes the move stick. He gets on by, and Longue now leading this race after starting 2nd place in this Grand Prix. He's now back up into the lead. Alvaro Caraton, he's not going to take this one lying down, because he's going to look possibly to the inside line in towards the Cida de Lago, but it's not quite enough, as Longue, with just 1.5 laps left in this Grand Prix, he leads the way of the Esports Invitational.
This is absolutely crazy. Luke Smith now down the inside of Jake Benham at Ferrajova. He gets himself onto a podium position, and Drake Dempsey thought for a second he could get alongside as well, but just had to settle. But look, just straight round the outside of Pinarino. He's got so much more traction, and Lucas Blakely, he'd be enjoying watching this battle if it wasn't so intense for him, as well as, almost losing it there. He might have fresh soft tyres, but Blakely almost losing it on traction there. That time trial setup, maybe catching the Scotsman out for a second, but look at the run he's going to get here on Jake Benham, and that should be Lucas Blakely comfortably into the top 5 after starting from the back of the grid. The Mercedes man's going to try as he might to hold on. He's not going to have the grips though on the brakes. There he goes, he does lose out, and Perenier down the inside and contact with him and Benham. All this is happening. Longue's escaped away, he's a second ahead, and Caraton, to his credit, isn't looking under pressure from anyone else.
And that's because Drake Dempsey trying to find the move around the outside at Tessida de Lago on Luke Smith. Can Possibly can Lucas Blakely and his McLaren try and find a way through as in towards Ferragura corner they go on the final lap of this race. It seems like a win is out of reach for these guys fighting for the podium. There goes Blakely to the outside of Drake Dempsey. Can he get the inside for Pinorino corner? He's onto the curbs, trying to squeeze his way through on the American driver. Switches it in towards Bico de Pacto down the inside of the Haas car as he made this one sick. Dempsey's onto the curbs. He's almost spun and come across Jake Benham. Lucas Blakely pulls that move off into the final sector now.
Into the final corners, Dempsey and Lusick are having their battle. Benham's dropping down the order. Longay took the risk for pits and he's being rewarded. The champion takes the victory here in the Invitational. Longay wins, Cavaton in second place. Luke Smith just holds on to the podium there with Lucas Blakely in fourth. Lusick, Dempsey, Sharbo, Conye, Shooter, Lewis and Pedreño, who let's not forget was last when the safety car came in after a spin at turn 1. He rounds up the top 10. Nadir obviously had disconnected. Benham, Miklevchich and Perenier, the rest of the finishers. Longay called that to perfection, made his tyres work. Takes a fantastic victory, not a bad way to prepare for the season starting next week.
Oh, and it certainly gives everyone a taste of what is actually going to be happening in WOR in the coming season. I mean, that was a fantastic end. Given the safety car, I mean, it was a bit lucky for us that we got to witness that, but the podium celebrations will now commence. It's Nicholas Longay. I mean, what a drive from him today. He's going to stand atop the podium. Alongside him is the Williams of Alvaro Caraton and Luke Smith finishing it out in third. But what a way to get the season underway with that Invitational.
Yeah, certainly a fantastic performance. Longay spraying the champagne. That was a familiar sight last season. We'll have to wait and see if it's a familiar one this. Cavaton in second. Luke Smith getting there in third place. He'll be delighted with how this one worked out. As we wait for the rest of the results to come up, it was Lucas Blakely who came home in fourth place. A superb performance from him, of course, having started right down at the back of the grid. And Daddy Lusink rounded out the top 5 as well. So much action happening in that race, as unfortunately it looks like the results are taking quite a while to load. So we'll just debrief on all the stuff that happened after that safety car. Obviously it was all hell broke loose, as unfortunately it doesn't look like we are going to get to see the results from that race. We know the top 3. Longay taking the victory. Second place for Alvaro Cavaton and Luke Smith in third.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, and I've just realised I've not got my camera on there. But yeah, I mean, that was a... Oh. There we are.
Yeah, fantastic. Like we said, a fantastic job there. All managing to work out brilliantly. We'll try and get those front 3 drivers in for an interview. I think Cavaton did a fantastic job making things work out at the end on the set of the soft tyre. Well, set of the hard tyres, obviously, fighting everyone who was on the softs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did a great job today. He was really, really strong, and he was able to hold off. I mean, there was a lot of battling further back behind, so I think that did help him. But even just to keep those guys at bay and pull a second on them, very, very impressive from the Spaniard there. So I think even though he didn't come away with the win today, I think he's got to be happy with his performance.
Yeah, and I think there'll be others as well further down the order that things didn't quite work out to plan, but I think they'll still be happy with the pace that they managed to show. Jake Benham, for example, just quite getting caught out by that strategy at the end, which I don't think anyone was expecting that late safety car. It would have been interesting to see what Shooter and Butcher could have done on their strategy. Obviously, start going for the medium softs versus the medium hards anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much variety really in this race. I really did love that. As I'm just noticing on the stream, if you tab into Discord quickly, I should pop up on your screens, because you're just looking at Colton Herter at the moment, and there I am.
I mean, some people might like looking at Colton Herter. Let's be perfectly honest, you might be able to see a lot more of him in Formula 1 next year, if the rumours are to be believed. He's not having too bad of a season whatsoever. But yes, talking on to that race again, it was all building up to a bit of a climax anyway, and then the statue-like safety car just sent it to a different level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I didn't really expect him to actually lose it at such an odd place, because he wasn't in the traction zone at all. Maybe he got on the curb or something, but that gifted us with what was a fantastic ending to what was looking like a bit of a slow race towards the end. I mean, who knows what could have happened between the leaders on their sets of the hards, but I think being able to have all those drivers who sort of fell off during the race come back towards the front and then challenge some of the top guys, that was really entertaining.
Yeah, certainly. We are hoping that we can get to at least talk to, a few of our drivers. I think Luke Smith will be coming along. He had an entertaining end to that race. I mean, all the way along, it looked like it was going to be Cavaton, Longay and Benham up there. Certainly showing some good pace. But I think we saw from the likes of Smith, Butcher could have been up there as well. Some of those other drivers that perhaps we wouldn't expect to be always fighting up towards the front might just have a say in this championship.
Yeah, it really does set a precedent for what is sort of going to happen in this season. I mean, it's going to be so exciting to witness, and there's going to be so many different drivers coming in and scrapping it out. And bearing in mind, this isn't even our entire grid. We're still missing the likes of Yano and Barry and Josh Adowu in this race. So there's so many more competitive drivers that can scrap it out with everyone today and put on an amazing season in WOR.
Yeah, certainly will do. And we're going to have some interviews first before we do go over and show you who the drivers are going to be for next season. So as we just make our way across and try and drag in our first of the drivers who will be making his way in, it is going to be Luke Smith, but unfortunately Discord not letting me drag him way in towards the commentary box at the moment. So we'll just leave it a couple of minutes. Hopefully it will manage to sort itself out. There'll be drivers who will be gutted, obviously, about how the start of the race went. And I think the main ones, obviously, Paradchich and Baena having that incident earlier on.
Yeah, I think it was a real shame that we didn't get to see more of Paradchich, who was on that alternate strategy, of course, starting on the set of the hard compounder tyres in 7th position. He was sort of swallowed up by everyone at the beginning of the race, but we never got to see his hard tyres in full effect, and how he could have pulled off that strategy. So it is a real shame for Tomek, but of course we know him from last season. He's always a fighter, always contending for wins, and hopefully this doesn't knock his confidence at all.
Yeah, hopefully it is a fantastic job for him. Unfortunately, seems to be having a few technical issues here with the Discord. It doesn't seem to be letting me allow Luke Smith to join the interviews, which is such a shame. I think we'd have all wanted to hear how he found the end of that race. So I think while we're hoping that everything sorts itself out, we'll just take a bit of a look at the lineups then for this season, if we get them coming up on your screen now. I mean, the ones that stand out to me straight away, as you'll see them all through the screen, is Mercedes and McLaren, two very strong lineups.
Absolutely, it's Jake Benham and Jan Ottmere at Mercedes, and then Barry Burremand and Lucas Blakely at McLaren. And we didn't get to see two of those drivers tonight, and I'm really interested to see how they can scrap it out. And I mean, just looking at this grid appearing on the screen, there's so much talent just stuffed in to 20 cars and 10 teams, and I'm really looking forward to this season getting underway. Yeah,
certainly. I mean, you can see there we've got the Ferrari lineup, the Capua and Padgoat, Lewis Welsh just making their way. Haas with Stachelek and Ron Haar, trying to see if he can emulate his form on the Xbox platform onto the, well, he did quite a few races on the PC. He was the highest non-esports finisher in last season's PC league, and I think these are the two teams to watch. Barry and Lucas Blakely in the McLaren lineup, and Jake Benham alongside Jarno Ottmere, who's won pretty much all there is to win when it comes to esports and league racing. Maybe just trying to prove himself here in WOR as well. He was unfortunately missing tonight, but he will be here at the next race, because the championship, of course, is getting underway next week, as we're just going to bring on the circuit that we're going to be racing at throughout the rest of the season. Started off next week with a race which, in real life at least, provided some fantastic action today at Austria.
Yeah, that was a very intense race, and I think it led to a lot of drivers, sorry, not even drivers, just fans losing their nails just because of how much they bit them. But I'd imagine that WR, given what we saw today, is going to be the exact same, just in anticipation of who is going to come out on top, who's going to have an incident, who's going to make the most of what is a fantastic racetrack for overtaking.
Yeah, and you can see there as well the sprint races that we're bringing to WOR as well for the first time. Bahrain going to be the first one of those. We're going to see Belgium and Abu Dhabi as well. 16 race calendar ending 2 weeks before Christmas, which seems like a long way away, but trust me, it will come surprisingly fast as we get ready for the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. I mean, absolutely can't wait for this season. We saw superb action tonight. Just imagine what it's going to be like next week when there's actually points and prizes to fight for.
Absolutely. I mean, there was no incentive at all to win this race aside from pride, and everyone just gave it their all, and I'm really excited. I keep saying that I'm so excited for this season to get underway. I just wish that it was next week already. I wish it was the 17th rather than the 10th, so we could get into Austria, which is a fantastic race, and then we have the sprint race as well, which is going to be so entertaining and exciting, and who knows what's going to happen. There's going to be so many curveballs this season, and I can't wait to get underway.
Yeah, it is going to be a fascinating season, so make sure to join myself and Dan at 7 PM next week for the first round of the PC Tier 1 season. Keep an eye out on the WOR Discord. Links to that and the rest of the socials are down below in the description. If you do want to sign up on PlayStation, Xbox, or on the PC, a great league across all 3 platforms and catering to any ability levels. You can follow me and Dan as well at LukeFbridge95 for myself, at DanfieldF1_ for Dan. And from us both, we will see you in a week's time for the Austrian Grand Prix. Longue's the reigning champion. Longue won tonight. Can he kick off his championship with a victory at the Red Bull Ring? From both of us and everyone here at WOR, take care of yourselves and goodbye.